This week's episode is sponsored by Change. Change is the #1 mentoring programme that teaches you e-commerce from scratch. Change has a real community with real results. I have been working with Ryan for many years now and have attended many of his events and retreats across the world and got to meet members and the amazing community of like-minded people. Ryan works with a lot of big names in the business world, helping them build online businesses and e-commerce. Change offers personal one-on-one support, no experience needed, but like anything, this takes time and is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you put the work in, you will get the results. E-commerce and online shopping is getting bigger and bigger. This is a great opportunity for anyone that is looking for financial freedom. For more information, go follow Ryan on Instagram at RyanJB, and he will guide you through the steps to help you get started and build a successful online business. You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. Boom, we're on. And today's guest, we've got Tommy Robinson. Tommy, how are we?
I'm good, James. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Listen, it's good to see you out. It's good to see you free. It's good to see you back doing your thing.
Doing my thing, certainly are, aren't we?
We'll promote straight away your books, hats, t-shirts.
These are my 4 books. Autobiography, Enemy of the State. I bought that in 2015. It went to #1. This is the only one that's left on Amazon. These 3 are banned. So they're banning books. They're literally burning books. This brings 2015 up to 2021. I'm actually writing another book now to bring it up to date. But that was banned from Amazon. This manifesto, which talks about everything that's happening, it's all planned. Yeah. By 2041, we're a minority. This is the biggest, we'll get onto this conversation. The biggest threat to our future in Britain is the fact that we're going to be a minority. Yeah. And that's what's coming. And the biggest weapon they have is pretending it's not happening. Like the immigration, the massive immigration, the birth rate. And this is Muhammad's Quran, why Muslims kill for Islam. This explains, if you want to win an argument with someone about Islam being a religion of peace, because it most certainly isn't, you can get that. All those books are available at trbooks.co.uk. You know, they banned, you can buy Hitler's book in 20 languages. You can't buy Tommy Robinson's on Amazon. How mad's that? That's all factual. I said, when I brought this out, someone dissect it and argue with it then. Someone defeat it in an argument. They can't. And this is, that's for you, James.
Thank you.
For the 13th of September, United Kingdom, come on. And you get this, you get them at nationwear.co.uk. I don't care, I'm grifting. I also think it's great branding for our event. We're about to unite the kingdom like no one has ever seen on the 13th of September. I think you've got 1 million people heading to central London. I think the whole of Britain is fed up. Everyone's had enough. People who have been whispering about this problem for a decade and now they're not going to whisper about it anymore. They're going to scream and shout about it. We're bringing them all together on the 13th of September. Keir Starmer's nightmare.
Tommy, you've been on the show now 6 times, more than any other guest. I had you on 5-6 years ago when you were going through the cancellation. Nobody would kind of touch you, but now it's trendy. Everybody's wanting Tommy Robinson on. Everybody wants to speak about it. Not so many people are scared. Again, before you went to prison, I was with you in Spain, me and Tufsy, who's a good brother of mine. You could see obviously what you were going through, the strain back to prison. You thought before when you landed you would have got prison, but you actually got out. But you knew you were getting a sentence. Which people don't understand how fighting against the system. You stood up and done fuck it. I'm releasing this documentary, which has been seen well over 100 million times now. Like, it's been mad. How was it knowing you were going to prison for something that you wanted to believe in?
You come see me, James, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
I was shitting myself, wasn't I?
Yeah.
My head had gone. To be honest, I look at where I've been. Do you know how many ups and downs I've had? I just think, Jesus, how was my... Even recently, we'll get on to St Pancras recently, yeah? I'm up here, and then I'm down there, and then I don't know if I'm coming or going. I don't know if I'm living or dying. I don't know if I'm going to jail or surviving. I don't know what's happening. But when you come see me in Spain, you're right. I'd made a decision to release a documentary. It was actually viewed... And at the time when you come to meet me, I don't know what I'm coming back to. I know I'm coming back to the UK. I know I faced prison. I knew I faced 2 to 4 years. And when I go to prison, I don't know what that looks like. Am I going to get killed? Are they going to let the Islamic gangs get me? I don't know, yeah? So as I'm coming back, that's when you come to see me. I was shitting myself, man. I had to say goodbyes to my family, goodbyes to my kids. I don't know what I'm walking into. I come back and I ended up getting an 18-month prison sentence from the judge for playing a film. I made a documentary. I released a documentary. I'm a journalist. That's my job. And I was sentenced to 18 months. And I had a vision when I got the injunction and when I made the decision to release the film. I done it on the 27th of July in front of 100,000 people in Trafalgar Square. My hope was that that film showed an in-depth story of a corrupt judiciary and their media working hand in hand in order and the lengths they would go to control the narrative of a story. Forget it's about me, yeah? This told a far bigger story than me because lawfare, which is what they'd waged against me, they'd used the corrupt judiciary to silence me, to attack me, to bankrupt me. They bankrupt me for £1.5 million based on a total lie. I had all the evidence it was a lie. Now, this story told a bigger story than Tommy Robinson. The courts have been used against Geert Wilders, Marie Le Pen, Steve Bannon. Katie Hopkins was bankrupt. They took her home off her. Donald Trump. Anyone who's challenged the status quo, in the end, they face court, whether it be Andrew Tate, whether it be Russell Brand, whoever, yeah, they come for you. And that's what's happened. And what I managed to do was document and show the entire evidence with covert recordings of how they operate. So I made the decision to release the film. And I hoped when I released that film, it could have been a dead balloon. No one could have viewed it. It could have not got the traction it got. When I was in jail, I obviously got 18 months. I'm sat on solitary confinement in Wood Hill Prison, 7 weeks into my sentence. I ring home, first week of January. I speak to my son. He's like, Dad! I'm like, what? He said, Elon Musk shared the film. Elon Musk has pinned 3 Tommy Robinsons. So that moment, I sat in my cell, and I was having a bad time anyway, yeah? But I sat in my cell and thought, right, it's been worth it. We nailed it. We've done it. As in, because I could have released that film. I could have got the 18-month prison sentence and no one could have watched the film. But at that point then, I knew it was on 100 million plus. It ended up getting viewed by 167 million people. The media, politicians, journalists can continue to paint the narrative and try and push the story Tommy Robinson lied. They just, like Nigel Farage has done, you just forget that 167 million people have watched every shred of evidence. They know that I told the truth. I was the only journalist in the UK who told the truth about what happened in that story in the north of England.
How was prison going in again for the first day? Because I know the struggles you've had previously when they've put you against terrorists, they've put you against people who want to kill you. How was it the first day going in again? Were you fearful that you wouldn't have got out?
I was fearful. Yeah, of course. Do you know what I was more fearful for? Which I actually said I had a meeting with a psychologist the first week because I got removed from Belmarsh and they took me to Wood Hill where they brought me in. There's 16 cells here, 16 cells here, which is the segregation unit of the prison. You go to segregation when you stab someone, set fire, attack someone in a violent incident, anything like that. You then get segregated, yeah, in a separation unit. Now in segregation, you're allowed to, it's called the Mandela rule. They can put you in solitary confinement for 14 days. That's it. Beyond 14 days, it starts being detrimental to your mental health and damaging you. After 42 days, the prison can extend it to 42 days. Beyond 42 days, the government have to step in. So it's the government who make the decision to isolate you. Yeah. So just for the record, Axel Rudicabana, the Southport killer, has not spent any time in solitary confinement. Okay. He's not in solitary confinement. Michael Adebolajo, beheaded Lee Rigby, not in solitary confinement. Salman Abedi's brother, the terrorist who was involved in the Manchester bombing, who recently attacked a prison guard, not in solitary confinement. None of them are in solitary confinement. They're all in units together, groups of them playing pool, having fun, friends. They're all together. They're not in solitary confinement. So I land in Wood Hill. I'm brought to the segregation unit. They clear all 16 cells. So they put me on one side of the unit, just totally on my own. So it's just me. I've got a whole unit to myself. They lock me in my door and I'm then told, this is how you'll be held. I have a meeting with the governor, psychologists, mental health, all the team. Because when you're in solitary, you have to be assessed by a doctor, assessed by psychologists, and assessed by the prison governor. It's called a good board. Every 14 days, you have to sit down in an assessment, which was just them ticking boxes. So when I sat down, I asked the psychologist, okay, I'm serving 9 months here. This is how you're going to hold me for 9 months. I didn't ask for 1 second to be separated, yeah? They said, well, you're not safe here. I said, I'm in here for a civil offence. a civil crime, not a criminal offence. You've brought me to a maximum security jail where 40% of the prisoners are Muslim and 50% of them are serving life in prison for murder. What am I doing here? What am I doing in Wood Hill Prison for this offence? So people understand, I breached a civil injunction. Anyone who breaches a civil injunction, that's a D category offence. For a D category offence, you go to an open prison where you go home. Now, my lawyers had found an open prison called Britannia House near Norwich that has 40 prisoners. We found out ourselves there's no Muslims there. So we said that to the governor. Why don't you send me here? Then I can have a normal prison sentence. And my worry the whole time, my worry more than any physical violence was what it will do to my mind. Yeah. Because I've been in this situation already before and it took me years to try and get back to some sort of normality when I come out after. And that was after 3.5 months of solitary confinement. So when I sat down in the first meeting with the psychologist, I asked her, you're the expert. What will 9 months of solitary confinement on my own, seeing no one, meeting no one and talking to no one in that room do to me? She says it's going to be devastating. So I said, so how are you doing this? How is this your plan? Well, we'll review it every 14 days. It's like, so every 14 days they bring me back out, boom, no, we're segregating you. And then it goes to and then Shabina Mahmood, the Muslim Minister for Justice, whatever, I had to write my opinion and my opposition to the way I was being held, because I argued this the whole time. I said, I don't want to be held in separation. I want to be. And do you know what? When I was in Wood Hill, I actually had friends that I'd gone to school with, that I'd grown up with, that were in there. One lad who's a Muslim, madly enough, and the imam, because the chaplaincy come to your cell every day as well, so they stick their head through. And the imam come on the first week and said, Imran sends his love. I said, Imran? And then he said, yeah, and that's a kid I grew up with. He's doing 28 years. I said, he's in here. He goes, yeah, he's here. And I spoke to him when he was in Bedford before. He goes, yeah, he's in here. I said, okay. So then when I spoke to the governor, I said, look, I've got someone in here. Can I have some sort of association? So I've got someone to speak to. But they refused that. They refused everything. So they literally brought me to a dangerous situation in Wood Hill, where they then used my safety as a reason to totally isolate me where it ended up being 7 months. So I walked into Wood Hill Prison and I left Wood Hill Prison without speaking to another prisoner, without seeing anyone. I spoke to one person for 1 hour once, Joe Outlaw, a prisoner called Joe Outlaw, who has been in solitary as well for a very long time. He's been fighting the system against the IPP. And he was, it's a mad story actually. You know, when I went to Belmarsh Prison for the first week, remember, when I'd been to Belmarsh 3-4 years ago, I spent time it's called the Contingency Suite. It's a prison within the prison that was built for Ian Huntley. And I spent time there 4 years ago. I spent months there. This time I land there, they put me there again. Now, when I walked out the first day there's a courtyard, exercise yard. So basically, it's a prison within the prison. It's got 3 rooms. One has an exercise bike. Then there's a shower room. Then there's your cell. So everything you need is there. Your visitors are brought to that unit. And I walked out on the exercise yard. And when I walked out on the exercise yard, I looked around and someone had done paper mache and covered the whole place. Like, I'm looking at it thinking, what the hell has happened here? And how has someone done that? And the officers were there. I said, what happened here? And they said, Joe Outlaw. I said, who's Joe Outlaw? He goes, he's caused the most destruction there is in the entire prison system, millions and millions of pounds worth of damage. I said, well, what's his story? He said, well, he's an IPP prisoner and he's a climber. I said, okay. They said, so he just climbs everything and gets out of everything. And they said, so he was brought here. He just spent 6 months in that cell that you're in now. I said, okay. I said, how the hell has he done this? He said he took the prison window out. So he smashed the window out, he made a catapult and he covered every single part of every window, yeah? So he just destroys stuff, which I found a mad story. So they would say, and I asked prison staff every time. I asked them about Julian Assange, any prisoners. I said, well, what's the score? What's he like, Joe Outlaw? They said he's a lovely lad. They said, but he's rebelling against the system because he got a 3-year IPP and he's been in here 10, 12 years. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you know about IPP sentences. Yeah. They're where people were given sentences where they were deemed to be a danger. He done an armed robbery, I think. Yeah. And then they're just not released. They've got no light at the end of the tunnel. So he keeps rebelling and climbing on roofs and smashing things. So I heard all this story and then I'm putting this unit on my own, 16 cells. And then one time they couldn't get me over to where they take me for exercise. So they put me out on the yard at the back. And as I'm out on the yard at the back, I heard, oi, oi, at the window. So I walk over to the window. This lad's at the window. He goes, mate, he goes, Tommy, I'm an activist as well. I said, you're an activist? What are you an activist? He goes, my name's Joe Outlaw. I went, fuck off, mate. I said, look, I'll just see what you've done. I said, I've just come from Belmarsh. So I see, he goes, yeah, that was me. And he starts getting me out all these newspaper clippings. Google this lad's name, yeah? Have a look at his story.
Is that his real name?
No, he's changed his name to Joe Outlaw, but this man is a warrior and a fighter for his cause, yeah? So bearing in mind, like he spoke to me and he said, I don't agree with everything with you, Tommy. I said, you probably don't know everything. But I had one hour conversation with this lad, yeah? And I spoke to him through the window and my heart bled for him because he's stuck in solitary. So because he's a climber, when I say he's a climber, Google the pictures. He's got, in maximum security units, which is where we were, so in a maximum security unit, you have this little courtyard and the courtyard has a cage over the top of it. You can't get out. He got out. He got out. He got through the roof, on top of the roof, in a maximum security yard. He got onto the roof of Manchester Prison, smashed the whole wall down. Everything he's done, and all to highlight his cause of IPP prisoners and his fight against the system. Because IPP prisoners, do you know how many of them are killing themselves? There's no light at the end of the tunnel. They're literally engraving IPP in their body and hanging themselves. Yeah. So he's fought that cause and he'll never see the light of day, I don't think, unfortunately for him. Because once you rebel against the system likes to teach you a lesson. Or they try to teach you a lesson, break you. But that's the only person I spoke to. I spoke to him for 1 hour during that prison sentence. The rest of the time, I was totally on my own.
Yeah, look at Charlie Bronson. But the IPP, for people who don't know, there's people who got 4 and 5 year sentences that are still in prison over 20 years. IPP was abolished as well. It's not active anymore. Yet people are still doing life sentences for something that doesn't even exist.
And then and do you know what? Do you know I sat there and I sat in my cell. I was on solitary. He was on solitary. So I sat in my cell and I thought about my situation. I had an end date, which was only 9 months. And I know what it was doing to my head. Yeah. So then I sat and put myself in his situation. He has no end date. There's no release date for IPP prisoners. So that man, how is he meant to stay sane? How is he meant to behave? How is he meant to have any light at the end of the tunnel when he has no date? There's no release for him. And then you expect him to behave. And I know by the little things they did to me at times. So say like my phone would turn on at 6 p.m. I'd line up and I'd wait to ring my kids at 6 p.m. So I'm going to speak to my son at 6 p.m. They just don't turn the phone on. Do you know, like I'm ready to kill someone. I'm looking, wanting to smash the whole place up, ready to losing my mind, thinking I'm waiting when I say you've waited, I've lay there looking at the ceiling for 10 hours waiting for that phone call. And then they don't turn the phone on. And they've done that so regularly as well. They literally done it all the time to me. And they've done that, but they're doing it to me. And then I think about, again, I just sat each time and thought about him. I thought, well, I'm getting out. Yeah. I'm out in 9 months. He doesn't have a clue when he's out. And he has took it upon himself. That's why I say the man's a warrior. He's a soldier for his cause. Well, after speaking to him and looking what he's done, I see him as in a bad situation because it's like Charlie Bronson. They never let him out.
What about your foods and that? Were you ever paranoid that you were going to be poisoned?
I'm always paranoid. So I am paranoid, but I just ate tinned food. But this sentence was a lot different because I was a civil prisoner and recognised as a civil prisoner on this offence. I had £60 a week to spend on my canteen. That would buy me 5 tins of tuna, 5 tins of mackerel, 5 tins of sardines. I had enough. I'm not going to complain at all. I didn't. So although I didn't eat the prison food that they gave, I had enough food. Yeah. When I was in 2018, I had £12.50 a week. So I literally had 5 tins of tuna a week, and that's all I could live on. Mm-hmm. And when I say, would I risk eating the food? Anyone who knows the prison system, you can get anything smuggled in. The Muslims control the entire prison system. Wood Hill Prison is totally governed and controlled by jihadist gangs. They control everything. They control the food. They run the servery. Literally, people are forced to convert because as everyone's coming up to get their food and the Muslims run the entire servery, they give the big portions to all the Muslims. If you're not a Muslim, you get a little shit bit of food. So everyone's converting for all different. They're getting bullied to convert. They're forced to convert. The prison officers explained to me how scared they are of the system because if the brothers, it's all said the brothers, yeah, that's the Islamic radicals that run the wings. If the brothers put a hit on you, and that's it. So if a prison officer upsets the brothers, then they'll just pay some little spice head to serve a prison officer up. Prison officers are getting served up every day. Every week, prison officers are getting stabbed, hurt. They've got a 90% retention rate. So 90% of the people who join as staff in Wood Hill leave within 2 years. 90% of prison officers leave in 2 years.
Obviously, the stresses and the strain it puts on your life, Tommy, but I know how much of a family man you are. How stressful is it for your kids and your mum and other people around you who really care for you?
I think they were worried. Well, I know they were worried. My mum, my whole family were worried. I think mainly worried. My biggest fear, again, as I'm sitting in there, was what am I going to be like when I walk out of here? Yeah, that's all. And then I was panicking the whole time. And I was panicking about so much, little things. I was panicking about, oh, my kid's safe, oh, my family's safe. Little things happening at home. Like there was incidents with my kids, there was problems sometimes. And I was panicking out of my mind about it because you just sat in a room all day with nothing else to think about. But my kids at the same time, I think, were probably panicking about me. My family were panicking about me. But at the same time, it's something that I made the decision. It was a conscious decision I made to release the film, knowing full well they'd lock me up in prison. It was something I'd sat down and discussed with my children, that I have to do this, kids. I have to release this film. I had an injunction for 3 years where I didn't release that film. And I stuck to the injunction for those 3 years, and it ate me up every day. And so that's when I sat the kids down and said, look, I need to do this. And by doing this, sometimes I feel unfair on the kids because I put them through. I think my son struggled a lot. Yeah, my son struggled a lot. I think my son struggled more because as we're growing up, it's usually me and him glued to each other. And then it's the girls with the mum a lot more in social things. So I think I left him alone. I left him on his own for too long.
Does he understand your mission?
Do you know what he gets to see it now as he's grown up and my kids have grown up. Do you know the first event they ever come to was July 27th, 100,000 people, Trafalgar Square. And do you know what's good is that they've got to see the public perception of their dad, which is not the most hated man in Britain, which is what they wish to portray me as. They get to see the love and the way I'm embraced in the street, whether it be going to Asda, whether it be when we're in Spain, whether it be walking down the street in the UK. They get to see respect that I'm shown. And they also understand, I've had sat down conversations about grooming victims. My children, you know, the film that I released was about a young English child called Bailey in the north of England, yeah? Which was a film called Silenced, which I've still got an injunction. I'm not allowed to mention certain things. I'm under a life injunction. I'll be sent straight back to jail like that, yeah? If I mention certain things, which is insane, okay? Those things are factual. They're recorded as factual, but I'm still not allowed to mention them. But there was a boy in that film who was 15 years old, who was my son's age now, yeah? And the whole country turned on him because he was falsely accused of being a racist. He was driven from his home. He ended up trying to kill himself. Now, when that boy was 15 and I went up and interviewed his family for that story, what a lot of people don't realise is that boy come to live with me. His mum and his two sisters moved in my house for 6 months after that because they had nowhere to go. They lived with me for 6 months. Then when the mum and the little sisters went back up north, Bailey stayed living with us for 3 years. So my kids got to know Bailey like a brother. Yeah, he was at our house on Christmas dinner. Yeah, he was part of our family for everything. So my kids know what a good kid he was. Bailey had a tough upbringing. Yeah, and he was abandoned by everyone because it was cool to be anti-racist and blame the white English kid for racism, even though there weren't a shred of racism in the incident, and even though he'd done nothing wrong other than stand up for his little sisters. But no one cared about that truth for that story. They used that it was swept aside for agendas from people, from different groups and people. So my kids got to meet Bailey, so they knew that I stood up for Bailey. They knew that the easy thing for me to do would have been, I was offered the opportunity to apologise and then I wouldn't have faced court prosecution. I refused to apologise. I was taken through the courts. I was bankrupt for £1.5 million, which resulted in my divorce, the breakup of my family. All these problems come from this story. I don't regret it one bit. I regret the consequences. I do not regret standing up for Bailey and standing up for the truth in that story. So obviously it's caused an absolute adverse effect to my family, but at the same, which I had Bailey then getting upset about, saying, oh mate, look, because he was blaming himself. But I said, mate, you did nothing. You were a child. When I think of what that kid went through, I've got a 15-year-old son. When I think of what that child went through in that viral story at that time, anyone who watched my documentary Silence saw what he faced and his family faced. I don't know how the kid got through it. I think of the pressure he was put under as a child. I think about now, my son, how would he deal with that? The amount of hate he received. So I don't regret it at all. And do you know, when I released the film and I spoke to Bailey, he said that now everyone shakes his hand in his hometown. Everywhere he goes, people apologise to him. So just off that one little thing, I'm glad I released the film because it would have changed the perception of him and people would have seen the truth about him and how the whole story was an absolute fabricated lie.
So you've basically destroyed your own life, other people's around you's life, just to try and save the one kid who you wanted to support. You've put everything on the line, basically. You've been in prison, your mental health went, families missed you, and you've done it all for the right reasons. Because you thought it was for the right reasons, which it turns out it was.
Yeah, it was for the right reasons. And it's not like, and I said to Bailey, this, because he kept thinking it's on him. I said, this ain't on you. Like, I'll do this again tomorrow. I'll do that again tomorrow, because they lied. And do you know what? That lie, and do you know, I sit here and I can smile about it now, because 167 million people saw that lie. Yeah, the whole world saw that lie. If no one would have seen the lie, and I'd have been to prison, I'd have been bankrupt, I'd have had my divorce, I'd have lost everything, the whole world knows they lied. The whole world saw the deception and the corruption, from the media to the police to the solicitors, all of them coordinating together. This unholy alliance of corrupt wrong-uns in order to control their bullshit story about racism. And do you know what? I think all of these points, do you know where we're at now? There is a mass awakening that's happened. The British public, I think, are bordering on ready for revolution in this country with the betrayal of their country. All things have played a part in that. My film, 167 million views, the story of what happened to Bailey, Lucy Connolly, Peter Lynch, everything that's happened has all played a key role in bringing the public to the position they're in now. That means 106, and I read the comments from the people who watched that film Silence, who said, I don't trust anything now. Good, don't trust them. They're lying. They're deceiving you. They're betraying you, our country. And so many people now have watched that. And that was an important milestone, and it had to happen. I had to go to jail for 7 months. I had to sit on solitary confinement. I explain this to my kids. This all had to happen in order to make people question, wake up, realise, look at the state of their nation, and also to give them the courage to speak out. It's like, we're only silenced. I'm only silenced if I allow them to silence me. I didn't allow them to silence me. And I pushed it to a point where not only did I not allow them to silence me, but I made sure that Bailey's voice and the voice of the betrayed people was risen to the whole bloody globe. Yeah. And right now, that's what we're about to do on September 13th again. They wished, in the recent, after the riots in Southport, the reason Lucy Connolly was locked up was to put the fear of God into every other law-abiding mother. Yeah, every other mother, every other English woman was meant to be so scared of saying anything on social media or speaking out. Has that worked? No, you've lit a fire in the bellies of every English mum. Keir Starmer's tyranny, the weaponisation of the judiciary, the corruption, the imprisonment of so many people put in jail for their words on social media whilst letting actual criminals out of jail. The public saw that. It was meant to act as a deterrent. What they did to Peter Lynch was meant to send a message to people: if we'll lock you up, shut up, sit down, shut up. What they done to me, I'd ask, has any of that worked? I'd say that all of those actions by a tyrannical government, by an oppressive government, have resulted in a mass awakening. And on the 13th of September, a massive message is going to be sent to the British establishment that we're not sitting down. The silent majority are going to be silent no more. Yeah, the cat's out of the bag. They can't put it back in. They keep trying to put it back in. They tried 12 months ago, was trying to scare people. Look outside the hotels now. Look at the protests. Look at the organic uprising that's happening across the UK. Look at the Raise the Flags campaign. That probably 1 million flags have been plastered. You can't even drive in here. There's flags everywhere, in every town, in every city, because people are now seeing that even their own, it's a sad state of affairs that your own country's flag, raising it, is now a sign of rebellion. So yeah, yeah.
What was the plan when you came out of prison? Was it a relief? Was it take a break? Or was it go straight to work? Because I remember speaking to Tufsy, and he says the guy just doesn't stop. You're planning documentaries, podcasts. It was straight back on the horse. Was that the straight agenda as soon as you come back out?
I sat in jail for 7 months thinking and having a vision and angry. So angry about my imprisonment, angry about sat in solitary confinement, angry about all of it, but also not wanting them to win. Not wanting it to be a success on their part, which is why I came up with the date, the 13th of September. As soon as I went to jail, on my first phone call, I said, reach out to Jordan Peterson, reach out to Dominic Soreski, reach out to all these people, and reach out to Katie Hopkins and agree the date. It's 9 months away. Get a date agreed that we know all of these influential people, because we had built in 12 months before my imprisonment, we'd built a movement, United Kingdom. Now, James, I didn't set this wasn't done by me, yeah? We had a combined meeting of many different groups and many different people, from Lawrence Fox to Cole Benjamin to Katie Hopkins to Calvin Robertson we had a meeting in London set up where we had, say, 20 people who all have a massive social media presence. Yeah. Some boxers, comedians, authors, all different backgrounds. And the idea of the meeting, which we spent, and Jordan Peterson flew in for the meeting, where we had a day to say an uprising or a cultural revolution and a cultural movement has to come from the bottom. Yeah. Not from the top, it comes from the bottom. And that's what we're in the process of building. Now, the idea was we sat down with all these different people and said, we don't have to agree on everything. You don't have to agree with me about Israel. You don't have to agree with me about Islam. You don't have to agree with me. But what can we agree on? What can we bring all these people together? We can agree on the attack on our culture. Yeah, British culture. We need to make being British cool again, right? Because unfortunately, everyone's converting to Islam. Every TikToker, influencer, or boxer is flying Palestinian flags or converting out of Christianity into Islam and getting loads of rounds of applause for it. Yeah? We are fighting for our culture here. We need to agree against sexualization of children. We need to agree on free speech. So we sat down and we hammered out these points to say, can we all agree on these issues? 5 key points to defend in Britain. Yeah. And if we can agree and we can align all of us under one banner, then at the click of a button, because you see the propaganda from the media, from the BBC, when the BBC runs a negative story against me or the national newspaper do, it's not just the BBC national, they then filter it down. So BBC Bedfordshire, BBC Hertfordshire, BBC Midlands, and their bullshit story will filter down to every regional news network across the whole country and it will spread. Yeah. And that's their propaganda against any one of us. Yeah. That's what they do. So to push their agenda or their lies or their smears, that's what they do. Now, if we can combine all these people together at the click of a button, we will have a bigger reach than the BBC, because I've got 1 million followers. He's got 1 million followers. He's got 1 million on TikTok. We had young black Christians who have got 1 million on TikTok. To reach all the different demographics, let's agree to fight for our culture. So when a politician lies or they go against our culture or they sell us out or any of these issues, so we brought those people together. We held our first event on the 1st of June, 30,000 people. We then held the 27th of July. And we spoke very publicly about this. This is what we're planning. We're going to build a cultural movement to defend Britain and defend British culture. And it's going to bring together an array of different personalities. And we're all going to work together. I spoke very openly about this, held our event on the 27th of July. On the 8th of July, I'm detained by counter-terrorism at the border. I'm actually charged. I'm facing prison next month for a terrorism offence, yeah? I'm detained. Now, so people understand, I don't know if this is what you want as a British citizens. Do you want your police? Because the first thing they told me when they detained me under the Terrorism Act, yeah, we're detaining you under the Terrorism Act. You do not have a right to remain silent, and you have to give them access to your electronic devices. This is the legislation. Now, the first thing the police said to me is, we know you're not involved in terrorism, yeah, but this gives us the power to do this. So I'm then sat down for 6 hours in an interview, and I'm asked questions about my legitimate, lawful work and activism. Who are you working with? What are your plans? What are you doing next? Who helped with your demonstration? Who funded the demonstration? It's like, why are the British state and the police able to interfere in law-abiding citizens having their own events? They were terrified by what we'd done. Do you know why they were terrified? Because for the first time in British history, 100,000 patriots took to the streets peacefully. Yeah, we showed that we had control of our crowd and we had an agreement with the police to stay away because there had been clashes of any patriot rallies. So, and do you know what? I had spoke very openly about, I've done a 5-part series so far called The Rape of Britain. Episode 6 is going to be looking at Labour's Muslim rape gangs. Now, so people understand, the police officer in charge of Rotherham Police at the height of this Islamic rape scandal is now the police officer in charge of counter-terrorism. Yeah. So all these people, the reason why they can't allow this mass investigation into these rape gangs is because all the people whose job it was to stop it, who have dirty hands, who facilitated it, accommodated it, turned a blind eye, and actually actively covered up for it, have now risen through the ranks of the Labour Party or the police force. They're in charge of counter-terrorism. They're now members of Parliament. Sean Davies, shit's coming home for you, mate. That's the Telford MP on our next documentary. I don't think you're going to be an MP for much longer. Yeah, once we expose our story of Telford, all of them were involved in cover-ups. So that's what we made it very public about this. They pulled me on terrorism charges. Then when they said, and I answered all their questions, I said, I'm happy to answer your questions. I've got nothing to hide. I answered their questions, and then they asked for access to my phone, at which point I said, no, I'm a journalist. I have lots of information on that phone. Just so people understand, in our 5-part series, we've exposed corrupt police officers who are taking money off gangs. We've exposed council members. We have exposed rape gangs, how they operate, who operates with them. Now, in every one of these rape gangs situations, Telford, Rotherham, Oldham, Rochdale, the police have actively worked with the gangs. Some police officers were raping in Rotherham. Council members were involved. There were cover-ups. They were breaking in and getting rid of all the evidence from the council offices. So am I going to trust? I asked the police, you think I'm going to trust you with the access to my sources of information? Not a chance. Each girl I sit down with and we tell the stories of, I give them my guarantee that they will be defended and protected, and I will not give any information on them. So the police asked for my phone. I refused to give it. I was charged under the Counter-Terrorism Act, and I now face prison on October 13th for a trial for that. So, but when I was looking at coming out of jail, so I went off on one. I always do. When I was looking at coming out of jail, I just knew I want to start where we left off. We left off with 100,000 people in Trafalgar Square. Everyone knows. Ask yourself this: if you're sitting at home, is our country going in the right direction? Have we got less freedom or more freedom? Are we more safe or less safe? Is it heading? Do you recognise your town centre anymore? Do you recognise your capital city? Do you want this? What's it going to look like in 10 years, 15 years? So I wanted to start off where I left off. So I come up with a date of 13th September. I come out all guns blazing. My plan was to give the date for the demonstration. And my plan was to have episode 6 of The Rape of Britain ready for this event. But then when I come out again, I didn't anticipate the difficulties I may face after spending 7 months on storage confinement. And I did feel, and I have faced difficulties, and I didn't feel myself, and I struggled, and I'm still struggling a bit at the same time.
How has it been when everything came out about the grooming gang? Something that you've been shouting for the last 10 years when it all came out. It was kind of votes over victims, where people were making deals. Labour MPs, police officers were making deals where kids' voices weren't getting heard. Kids as young as 3 and 4 being raped and abused, to then it coming to a head where the truth is starting to come out, where what you've been saying has been the truth. I
was happy when I heard Elon Musk shared my film Silence, but I was more happy when I heard he shared The Rape of Britain, episode 1, which was Nicole's story, a very brave young girl who, if anyone watches this, you can watch our documentaries at trfilms.co.uk. Episode 1, Nicole was 13 years old, impregnated, 100% DNA match for the rapist who was 23 years old, no further action. He got no further action. How does a 23-year-old man who raped a 13-year-old girl, who got her pregnant, who we have a 100% DNA match for the fetus of the child, how does he get no further action? Yeah. So when I knew that her story had been shared, I knew that Elon Musk was quoting The Rape of Britain, and I knew that the heat was turned on the Labour Party, Jess Phillips. This was all happening whilst I was in jail. So for me, you have to understand that for 15 years, I've travelled the country meeting families who have been broken, meeting survivors, some of the bravest women, looking at the work some people do. I look at Sammy Woodhouse. Do you know, I look at, have you had Raj Mir on?
Yeah.
Okay. So I look at these two especially, yeah. I look at Sammy. Sammy took on the gang of Rotherham, yeah. People can talk about we raised awareness, yeah. It still would never have got to the point it got to if Sammy Woodhouse hadn't led with Andrew Norfolk. I don't like Andrew Norfolk. I believe the motives and the reasons he done it was because we forced him to do it. But the grooming scandal of Rotherham would never have got there without the bravery of Sammy Woodhouse leading and giving her name and face against that gang, yeah? And getting the biggest sentence, 28 years her rapist got. She done that and stayed living in Rotherham. Now I know what these gangs are like. So I know the fear factor. I know that, when we done the 5-part series in Telford, they blew my car up. They went to my mum's house. They threatened to rape my daughters. They phoned me up. I show it on the documentary, threatening the school. They threatened my kids' school. So I look at what I faced trying to confront one gang in one town. And then I look at what Sammy Woodhouse done as a mother, a single mother, who was a victim of rape, whose child was from rape. And then even now she's fighting a campaign. So I look at what she done. And I look at the bravery that she showed. I look at Raj Mir, who still lives in Oldham, who faces the full Pakistani mafia gang, and he's still there fighting them. And I think people have heard my story, so you know my name. How many more Sammy Woodhouses? How many more whistleblowers? How many more are there across this country who have tried to speak out? Think of these survivors, the children. I know another girl in Rotherham I won't use another girl in Rotherham whose dad rang 999 200 times. I went and met her and her dad. The name she uses is Elizabeth, if I'm right. It's because they've all got pseudonyms from the cases. Yeah, she had a pseudonym name, and the BBC on BBC Asia they give her real name. They give her real name. So I think about, I live a life where you cannot find out where I live. That's how I have to live. Yeah. So I don't live in. I haven't got a home. Since I've come out of jail, I'm in Airbnbs, staying at people's houses. I'm in different countries. I've got no base, and I have to live that way. So I look at all these people who have stood up, the survivors and their families, and can only begin to imagine the threats, persecution, and fear that they faced during the trials, but even now, because many of these rapists are now coming out of jail. And they're going back to their hometowns in Rochdale, and they're walking past in Asda the rapists who terrorised them, tormented them, and tortured them for their whole of their childhood. So yeah, I think that for me watching it, until we see politicians and police officers imprisoned, until we see that, we're getting nowhere. Until we see the men and the women whose job it was to protect those kids, who failed those kids, until we see them brought to justice. Yes, we want to see the rapists brought to justice, but I want to see the people who let it happen brought to justice. And until you do that, they will forever cover up these cases. People will still turn a blind eye and go for the easy, I'd say the easy option. The easy option because it's easy to ignore it for them. The difficult thing is standing up against it and facing the full backlash of the Pakistani mafia in that town, the full backlash of the police, the media, the slander, the attacks, the demonisation, the calling you a racist and extremist because you want to protect your kids.
With the illegal immigrants, it's more and more looking like an invasion. They've went from 8,000 rapes in 2001 in the UK to nearly 80,000 within 20 years difference. It's becoming, just behind America, the rape capital of the world. So how does it go from 8,000 to nearly 80,000? Is it because we can't tarnish all illegal immigrants as all them it's raping, because the majority of the UK is white and the majority of rapes in the UK is white, obviously if you've got a higher number. But why do you think the rapes have went?
You can draw a graph. I've done it. A graph has been drawn.
I don't really know the stats.
A graph has been drawn for Sweden. So Sweden, Islamic immigration. Literally, it shows the number of Islamic immigration like this, and the rape line for the Swedish women is exactly the same. It just matches it. These men are coming from cultures and countries where women are not seen, certainly not respected, where violence against women is common practice every day. And for our women, and it's like they're playing a lottery game, just rolling the dice. It's like, no, your job is to protect British women. Even just this week, you've had another asylum seeker. There was one yesterday, a woman raped by a Libyan asylum seeker at the Eiffel Tower. Do you know, at the Eiffel Tower, every single day at the Eiffel Tower, every day in that region, there's a sexual assault or a rape by migrants. Every day, yeah? Every day. So when we look at the rape rates, as you said, gone from 8,000 to 80,000, well, what does that correlate with? Open border mass immigration. And we're supposed to just, that's part of everyday life. No, it's not, and it doesn't have to be. When we go on the figures, Muslims make up 5 to 6% of the UK. They're responsible for 84 to 90% of the gang rape convictions. 30% of the men convicted are called Mohammed. Why? Why? How come Sikhs have come to this country and they're not raping their way through it? Hindus have come to this country, they're not raping their way through it. Jews have come to this country, they're not raping their way through it. But having this conversation, and just to make the point, I'm not saying every Muslim's involved in these rapes. I'm not saying every Muslim agrees with it. In fact, I've grown up with Muslims in Luton who would hate this. Yeah, but that doesn't stop us from naming the problem. The problem is Islamic immigration into this country. That's the problem. And you can absolutely draw a correlation with Islamic immigration and rapes of women. And I'm sorry, but even the rapes that are coming out of the hotels, when we look, there have been 25 sexual assaults against children by men staying in hotels and 9 rapes of women. 9 rapes of women, and they wonder why people are angry. They wonder why people are protesting outside the hotels. And they haven't slowed it down. They've just sped it up. They're continuing to import these men. They don't know who they are. We know nothing about them. We don't know their criminal records. We don't know their crimes in their own country. They come here with no paperwork. And not only are we then putting them up and funding them and paying for them to be in 3 or 4, 5-star hotels, they're then coming out of those hotels and sexually assaulting our daughters. That's literally what's happening. So the fact it happened once should have been one time too many. Yeah. The British government's job is to protect the British public, not Afghanistan, not Iraq, not Eritrea, not Syria. We don't care. to be honest, I don't care about those people in those countries. I care about British people and British people first. So to think that Keir Starmer couldn't stop the boats, to think all of these things is just a joke. We could stop those boats tomorrow if we wanted to. They don't want to.
Yeah, you can stop the boats in 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Donald Trump done it within a day. So is there a big agenda behind it? Like, why is it getting led to young fighting men, no passports, no women, no children on these boats? What is the agenda behind it? Do you think there's a bigger reason for the unrest, to divide more people, to create a civil war? Like, what do you think's the main reason behind it all?
I think to divide people, to break down our communities, because that's what they're doing, breaking down our resistance. There's been a massive attack on our entire family unit, to break down the family, the feminisation of men, LGBTQ plus being indoctrinated in our kids from this big, the entire breakdown, and then in flooding it into the middle of it, masses of Islamic immigration, which then causes a total breakdown of our community. I look at the area I grew up in, Luton. There's no community there anymore. Everyone's left. Everyone's fled. And then they're all moving to new places. So I think that it's not a mistake. The flooding of Europe, these groups are literally coming off the boat of Libya, and then NGO organisations funded by the European Union are literally bringing them all the way to the shores of the UK, and then Serco and government agencies are taking them from there, housing them in hotels. And I think now BlackRock have just invested £1 billion into the housing market. So when Keir Starmer says we're going to get them out of the hotels, we're going to move them out of the hotels. Yeah, they're moving them out of the hotels. They're moving them into the house next door to you. You're going to have HMOs in everywhere, full of migrant men in your next door neighbour. I know they've just given there's a village not far from here called Henlow, where they've just given an entire road to migrants. The entire road on the new estate is now all Afghani migrants. Yeah, so that's happening across the country. So it's not a mistake. Anything, you can go back to the paperwork of the UN, the United Nations, for the population replacement, for migration replacement. There is a mass conservative effort to replace European populations, and we need to really wake up to it, because the demographical change to this country is going to be undoable. We're going to lose, because even if you had direct democracy, we're going to be outnumbered. We're going to be outnumbered by a population who, minority rights, we look at minority rights. Do you think those minority rights are going to be there for us when we're a minority? Do you think we're going to have the protection that their minorities have had? We've already seen the hate speech laws in this country. They're not to deal with Islamic radicals or jihadists. They're allowed to call for jihad. You see it day in, day out. The 800 or 900 arrests, how many arrests there are continued for Facebook, they're against white British people. That's the reality of it.
Why do you think then, if you look at the stats and the rapes and everything on the rise, that why is it not being stopped? Why is there not a blockage on it straight away? Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand how.
It does make sense if chaos is what they're looking for.
Is that what they want?
It does make sense if they want to import a population who are happy to be reliant on the state. They don't want us progressing. If you look now, these mass corporations are going to control everything. They don't want you having aspirations to succeed, to own homes. Like before, someone would have been able to have a good career, two people with a good career, buy 1, 2, maybe get free properties on the ladder, have a holiday every year. Now you need 2 jobs. Your family do. You're only getting 1 house. They're making it impossible. Look what Labour are doing now. They're making it impossible to get anywhere, to succeed, to make money. And they're importing a culture who are quite happy to be reliant on the state. The new migrants are happy just to live off the state. In fact, it's pretty halal life. They just pray, not bothered about working. I think the future, they don't expect everyone to be working with new AI technology.
Well, look what they're trying to do with the inheritance tax. 100%. Imagine working and leaving your kids a couple of houses, your family business, but they want to take a big percentage from that.
Even what they're doing now with the farming, where they're looking at the inheritance tax on the farming, that is for the mass corporations, for land. It's just land grabs. It's land grabs off of farmers. So then the corporations are the people who are controlling the entire food industry. It's happening not just here, it's happening in Holland. If you look everywhere, it's happening. So I looked when COVID hit in, and I started, that all these things were seen as conspiracy theories. But when you start looking at it, I think, no, this is about taking away all of our rights, whether it be 15-minute cities, taking away our rights, controlling us from every aspect of your life. And even I saw recently from, what's her name, from Reform, the MP, saying she's okay with digital IDs. How we can have a populist revolutionary party who are okay with digital IDs. Every part of our freedom is gone when they get a digital ID. And I see Reform pushing that agenda. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because when you look at it all, it's just, there is a massive unrest in the UK, and it seems to have been from a nation that colonised the majority of the world, which was a strong nation, had so much power, to people laughing at the UK now.
Well, we're a laughingstock to the rest of the world. We're a laughingstock to the United States of America. And look at Keir Starmer. He's a joke. But everything that's happening in the UK, it's not just happening in the UK. The flooding of immigration, the rape per capita. If you look across France, Sweden, Germany, look at Germany. But then the rising political parties now are the anti-immigration parties. But this absolute chaos that's coming, it's all engineered.
Well, Saudi owns a big part of London now, and they've got a big 15-20% on the new airport as well. Look, do you think people should be allowed to buy big parts of the UK from outside the UK?
I don't, and I see Qatar as a bigger problem than Saudi.
How so?
Because Qatar have spent nearly £750 million radicalising Muslims across Europe. Qatar give home to Hamas. Qatar are radical. They fund Wahhabism. They fund Salafism across Europe. They're problematic. I actually see the new king of Saudi and the new king of Saudi trying to reform it as such Islam. He's more of a reformist in comparison to Qatar. So Qatar are a big problem. I see Qatar as a massive problem. And Qatar own most ports in this country, don't they? They own half of London. They own more than the king.
Could there be a civil war here, Tommy?
Will people rise up? Will there even be a defence to it? If you look at what the Labour Party done in the last riots, yeah? Do you know when the riots went on in Southport? Mm-hmm. British people took to the streets. The Labour Party, along with Hope Not Hate, organised 100 fake rallies. If you look at this, yeah, Hope Not Hate come out saying, Nick Lowell's come out, made statements saying that Muslim women are being attacked with acid. Yeah, a total lie. Like, think about what people went to jail for. He lied. He radicalised the Muslim community. The Muslim community come out armed, weaponised in every town and city that they've got communities. They beat people up. They attacked innocent people. They charged the streets screaming Allah Akbar. None of the media showed the public any of this. The only way you got to see this was on X, thanks to Elon Musk. All of that's gone on. The Hope Not Hate then organised 100 rallies. The Hope Not Hate admitted they were fabricated rallies. And then they weaponised the local hostile Islamic community to crush any resistance from the Brits. So, and the police done nothing. You see Muslims walking around with baseball bats, poles. There's actually a video of a Muslim police officer telling the Muslims to go put their weapons back inside the mosque. Like, what is going on? The two-tier policing, the two-tier justice. If you're a native, we were crushed by the police, attacked by the police. We're governed differently. We're policed differently. The judges sentence us differently. There's a total oppression of British native people happening in this country.
Why is there two-tier policing? Like, I don't give a fuck who you are, what colour you are, what religion you are, what gender you are. If you're doing bad, you deserve your fucking time in prison, you know? So why would they why would people, Lucy Conley, get over 3 years in prison for a tweet, but yet or a Facebook post, but yet other people are carrying knives and bats, but there's nothing getting done about it. So why is there a two-tier policing? Is there more to it?
Because the courts and the judiciary are totally politicised.
Why?
That two-tier policing was to install fear into the British public. Shut up.
So was that false flag events?
False flag, I'll just say that they weaponised the judiciary. They saw that British people were standing up. They literally live streamed the arrests of British people, the imprisonment within 48 hours. They gave no one bail. So Lucy Conley wasn't given bail. That's why she pled guilty. All these people weren't given bail. Rapists are given bail. Rapists with DNA evidence to their rapes are given bail. So how come they politicised? And literally the judges were told, we looked at the cases and lots of people done the comparisons of the judges who sentenced people to prison and remanded them for their hurty words on social media, also allowed paedophiles not to go to prison because the judges and the judiciary were politicised. That's it. The courts, they were told, don't give any of them bail. And they tried to set an example and they forced them to plead guilty because they were being remanded in custody anyway. That's not a fair judiciary. That's a total politicised and weaponised judiciary and media working hand in hand. And the reason they did it was to scare the British public into silence, to put fear of God into the whole country. And at that time, I thought it worked. When I was out in Spain, when you come out, I decided to hold a protest on 26th of October because I felt we had to show the British public you can still protest because people were scared. Because half the people who went out just to protest were then getting locked up in prison as riots because they deemed all the protests as riots. They were just raiding people and locking them up in prison and remanding them. Like, look at Peter Lynch. Peter Lynch is dead now. What was his crime? What was his actual crime? He didn't do anything. How is the whole world not talking about that? That grandfather done nothing. He turned up to a protest with a sign and said he prays for his children. He didn't break any law. He wasn't violent. Yeah, he got 2 years in prison. Now he's dead. How is that? Like, were any Muslims sent to jail for their words on social media? Did any Muslims go to jail? And even when the patriots of the country who protested were getting put in prison, they were getting violently attacked and beaten by all the Muslim gangs. They were literally fed to the wolves. So you try and stand up, you're locked up in prison, you're either put in solitary confinement or you're violently attacked.
How's Elon Musk got involved? Why is he a big supporter now of yourself and the problems in the UK?
I think that he was just as shocked as anyone when he started seeing actually what had happened in this country with the rape of a generation of our kids.
Because I interviewed his dad. His dad's a big supporter of you. I went over to South Africa.
Did you?
To interview his dad.
When I was in jail, was this?
Yeah, when you were in jail, when he spoke very highly of you. And
do you know Elon Musk single-handedly shined the biggest torch and done the biggest thing for the scale of the problem in the UK, to shine a torch to make sure they couldn't hide from it anymore. Because you know what they managed to do? Just with people like us talking about it, they managed to put us as a fringe element, as far right, working class, as thugs, hooligans. It's pretty hard to do when the most powerful man in the world is shining a big torch at the same time that he was part of the American establishment. So, he shined the biggest torch, and I think that he's just shocked. And I think that any Americans looking at what's going on thinking, hold on a minute. And that's where people really underestimate the power of political correctness. How powerful is it? And how powerful is the Muslim vote bank? And what will politicians do to keep control of that bank of politics? They'll betray their own daughters. They'll give away British girls to be raped on the altar of multiculturalism, so long as they manage to maintain and control the Islamic vote. That's basically what the Labour Party have done. They put their votes from the Islamic community and social cohesion before the protection of 11-year-old English girls who are being raped and murdered across this country.
What's happening with Piers Morgan?
What's happening with Piers? I don't know, he's irrelevant, isn't he? He is, isn't he? Do you know what? He changes like the wind. He's like, what does he actually believe? Do you know what I mean? He's pro-Israel, he's against Israel, pro-Black Lives Matter, against Black Lives Matter, pro-vaccine, against the vaccine, lockdowns, against the lockdowns. It's like, what does he even believe?
Do you think he just jumps on the bandwagon to get views?
He jumps on the bandwagon to get views, and I think everyone sees that. Do you know what I mean? And I'd say that Piers is if I could describe him in media terms, he's a dinosaur.
I actually watched him on the Tyson. I think he was on Mike Tyson podcast. He was sitting smoking a joint. He was actually talking all right. I think when you're in the media, I think it must fuck with your mind, because you can't just follow your heart. You can't just follow what you want instead of following the narratives. He seems to jump with the crowds.
Well, he was in my film Silenced, yeah? And what he did, when a 15-year-old boy, remember this, a school playground incident happened where one boy poured a bottle of water on another boy. He used his daytime TV platform to demand severe retribution against the racist vermin. He described a 15-year-old kid as vermin. Remember, he talks about me being irresponsible, yeah, and me not being a journalist. So this journalist, Piers Morgan, who sat at the head of the Daily Mirror newspaper at the height of the rape gang scandal in our country, are we supposed to believe he didn't know there was a rape gang scandal in our country? He did not report on it. He hacked dead children's phones. He doctored pictures of our armed forces for torturing Iraqi prisoners, yeah, proven that he doctored them. So all these things, and yet he wants to look down and sneer down his nose upon me and my journalism. Whereas in reality, what has he actually done in journalism? Like, what is his position now? And with his lies, so he demanded severe retribution against a 15-year-old child. From his calls for severe retribution, it resulted in death threats, the family coming under attack, threats to rape the children. He still hasn't even owned that. He hasn't held his hands up and said, look, I fucked up. I got it wrong. And that's what he did. And he got it wrong to a child. Yeah. And do you know what else he done? He sat down with Andrew Tate. And the knock-on offence, when he goes on about me, he sat down with Andrew Tate and he said to Andrew Tate, your mate is encouraging violent attacks against mosques, talking about me. That had 8 million views. The next day after that, my mum and dad got a knock on the door by the police, giving them an Osmo warning for endangerment to their life. I had to fly my mum and dad to Portugal the next day after Piers Morgan's irresponsible reporting, which is what it is. Not just irresponsible, the downright lies that he's told about me. So he keeps going on about now, after having me blocked for 4 years, after the last time I spoke to him on Good Morning Britain, which was after the Ariana Grande concert, when I tried to discuss important topics. And that, when I went into that discussion with Piers Morgan, I had every bit of dirt about his life, his sordid life, his lies. But I thought, I'm on national TV. The public need this conversation. They don't need a conversation of me against Piers Morgan. They need a conversation about Islam, about the mosques, about jihad, and about rapes and grooming and what's happening to our kids. That's what we need to use this 2 or 3 minutes to talk about. So whilst he tried to come at me with attacks against my personal character, I didn't want to return those attacks. I wanted to use the opportunity to try and have discussions around Islam. And that's what I did. And Piers, that discussion hasn't aged very well for Piers, because all he done was scream at me about showing some damn respect for the Quran because I held up the Quran. I've actually watched continued conversations recently where he sits and has a discussion with Jordan Peterson. He doesn't call him an Islamophobe. He doesn't attack him as far right. He doesn't scream at him to shut his mouth when Jordan Peterson is simply having the same discussions that I had. So Piers obviously has a problem with me. I'd say it comes down to, again, my class and the fact that these journalists don't like the fact that now they're the old media. We're the new media. It doesn't really matter, Piers, what you say. And I come out of jail and Piers was saying, oh, now he wants to sit down and talk to me. Why would I sit down and talk to you? I will talk to Piers Morgan, but when I finish talking to people who I see as far more relevant than him.
Yeah, but I had Nick Tindoni on, the UK UKIP leader. And because this is a Christian country, I go to Dubai. And like you say, you've got Muslim friends who are great. I've got Muslim friends who are great. And I do hate the divide. I go to Dubai. It's safe. Muslim-run country. Muslim-run city. But he was saying, in Saudi Arabia, they don't let churches or chapels be built. You don't have
it's illegal to have the Bible
Christians in Parliament or anything. So he's saying, why should there be mosques allowed in the UK then? Do you feel, because like it's hard to get, I fucking hate the divide, because like I say, I've got many great fucking Muslim brothers and sisters who are sound as fuck and they're not terrorists, they're not doing all this shit. But do you think they can live together, Muslims and Christians?
Well, Islam has never, ever peacefully coexisted. There's 45 countries we can look to in history where Muslims have come into the country as a minority and ended up waging jihad and war and taking over the country. Whichever country we look at, whether it be Iraq, Afghanistan, Turkey, these are all Christian nations. So where is this perfect example of where it's worked ever in history? Why do we think Britain or Europe's going to be any different? It's not. The Muslim demographic of this country now is 5 or 6%. What do you, if you're watching this, what do you think it's going to be like when they get to 20%? Now, it doesn't matter that you've got nice mates, and it doesn't matter that I've got nice mates, because they're nice mates and they're good men, not because they follow Islam. Because if they follow the doctrine of Islam and the word of Islam, they're not going to be nice mates. Yeah, they're going to become radical. They're going to become jihadists. 4 times as many British Muslims went to join ISIS than ever joined the armed forces in Britain. So Muslims have been here for 40 years, say? And 4 times as many Muslims went to fight for ISIS than have ever joined or served in the British military. We have a problem. 40,000 British Muslims are on a terror watch list. Yeah, 66% of British Muslims would not report on another Muslim who is joining ISIS. We've got a problem. 1.2 British Muslims want Sharia law in the UK. For me, that's 1.2 million Muslims who need to leave. Yeah, your time is up. See you later. Go. You want Sharia law? Go to one of your own countries and have Sharia law. What they're trying to do is mix oil and water. Show me where it works. Show me where Islam has peacefully coexisted ever in history, and I'll rest my case. So it's going to be no different. It's least of all going to be no different when we allow Saudi, Qatar or Iran to fund many of the mosques, madrasas and the form of Islam that's being promoted in this country. It's never going to work when we're weak, cowardly and pathetic and bend every opportunity to Islam and the extremism that we're seeing in this country. So I think Nick Tindoni, after watching him, I think he's possibly the best activist that's come on the scene. I've watched him come from nowhere. I think he's brilliant, he's strong, he's staunch. And he's right about Christianity. There is a Christian revival happening in this country where, for some reason, Christianity has been seen as weak. And I'd say it's been seen as weak because the church leaders are weak and pathetic. Why am I seeing all church leaders talk about Palestine and not talking about Nigeria, where 20,000 Christians have been massacred at the hands of Islam? Christians are getting persecuted. Wherever Islam is a majority, how is it for Christians in those countries? What's it like now for Christians in Syria? What's it like? What's it like for Christians in Pakistan or Afghanistan? They want to talk about minority rights, but not only when they're a minority. When they become a majority, there are no minority rights. Where's the rights for Christians? And why aren't our church leaders leading marches or at least vocal against the persecution of Christians in every single Islamic nation? There's no freedom for Christians in Islamic nations. They're persecuted, they're targeted, they're raped, they're pillaged, they're murdered. And what's happening now, has gone on for 1,400 years with Islam. So yes, there's some good Muslims, but what did the good Muslims do to prevent the grooming gangs? How many Muslims in the UK, bearing in mind we now know that from the latest rape gang inquiry from Rupert Lowe and Sammy Woodhouse, 85 cities where Islamic rape gangs have been pillaging their way through it. How many Muslims in those 85 cities where entire communities, if I'll give you the statistics just for Telford. Telford has a 1.7% Muslim population. So in Telford alone, we had 1,000 victims. Police figures, not mine. They identified 1,000 victims. They identified 200 rapists in Telford. They only prosecuted 11. So 189 rapists are still walking around Telford unchallenged, even though the police identified who the rapists were. So 200 rapists in Telford out of a 1.7% Muslim population. Get rid of the women, get rid of the under 16s, the over 70s. There's only 3,000 Muslims in that town. There's only 1,000 men. So out of 1,000 men in Telford, 20% of them have been involved in the rapes. So that's 20% are involved in the rapes. How many others knew about it? In towns like Telford, in fact, across the entire United Kingdom, how many Muslims went to the police and reported on their fellow brothers, cousins, fathers, uncles, nephews, or work colleagues raping English kids? Do you know how many? Not one. Not one single Muslim reported or went to the police and gave evidence. In fact, in every single case, if we look at Rochdale, in Rochdale, the local Muslim councillor for Labour Party, Hussein, went to court and gave a character reference for the rapist. He didn't go to court for the little girl in his constituency, the English girl, 100 of them who had been raped. He went to court and gave a character reference for the rapist. He's excelled through the Labour Party. The former Labour mayor from Bolton went to court and gave a character reference. These men in every community have been supported and defended by their community. So when Rupert Lowe makes comments like, whoever knew about it, whoever was guilty, whether it be wives, brothers or uncles knew about it, need to be deported, he is 100% right. Entire communities knew that our daughters were being raped and not one of them stepped forward. Do you know why that is? Because under Islam, they cannot side with a non-Muslim over the Muslim. So it doesn't matter that he's raping, yeah? That doesn't matter. Because they still won't side against him. They still won't report on him. And that's why there's been no reports. And that's why you get the statistic when you look at how British Muslims think. I think Trevor Phillips, was it Trevor Phillips who come up with the term Islamophobia? The black guy, the news reporter? He done an investigation on what British Muslims really think. And that's where he found that 2/3 of British Muslims wouldn't report on another Muslim who was going to join ISIS. That's a massive problem. The way this, and if we look, Afghanis are 22 times more likely to be involved in rape than other nationalities. Why are our borders open to any Afghanis? Why do we have any flights coming into this country from Afghanistan? Why? There should not be one Afghani should ever be allowed back into this country. Not one. Do you know why? Because I don't want to play a game. So say some of them are nice. I don't care if some of them are nice. What I care about is the rape statistics from people from that country and how many British girls are being terrorised by men that have come here from Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's what I care about. And I think people have are sick to death now. And that may not be politically correct. That may upset some people's feelings. When I walk down the street, some Pakistanis and Afghanis may want to punch me in the face. I don't care. Yeah, I care about the little girls that they've tortured, the British women who are being terrorised, the British schoolgirls who are now scared to walk to school because the hotels are full of Afghanis. I care about the 100,000 that have been brought in by the Labour government who are being housed in military bases. If you look at some of these cases, do you know the Libyans at the military base in Cambridge, they raped 2 men. Libyan soldiers were brought in for training in our military bases. They raped 2 men. Men walking home across the park were raped by Libyans. Why are any of these people allowed and permitted access? The only people who should be coming to this country should be to benefit this nation. How are Afghanis benefiting our nation? What has Pakistan done for this country? And essentially, what has it done? Other than import a generation of rapists who have terrorised this entire country.
What do you actually think of politicians, Tommy? Because I struggle to trust any of them. I know you were a supporter of Reform last year. You were very much behind them, promoting them. Then it kind of shifted again. But what do you actually think? Is there any good politicians out there that people should support?
Let me tell you, on the 13th of September, we're about to have a mass event in London. Yeah, and it's going to be an event attended by the forgotten, neglected and betrayed British public. I think we're going to have 1 million people there. We have got politicians coming from Poland, from Germany, from France, from Belgium, from Holland. Politicians coming from all these countries to talk to the forgotten, neglected British public. Out of 650 members of Parliament in the House of Commons, how many of them are coming to talk to those people? Not one. That shows you the detachment of the British establishment with the British public. There is a mass attachment. And yes, I did go with reform because I hoped with reform, when they were taking, when it was all sweeping and there was this populist revolution brewing, I thought, great, we're doing a cultural movement. Let reform be the political option for the people. Yeah? Let them take this voice and give them a political home. And then Nigel Farage come out and said mass deportations aren't possible. He's got no interest in it. Then he said he's not bothered about the demographic replacement. Let me tell you, it's not racist to say that Scotland should remain a majority white Scottish country. England should remain a majority white English country. Nigeria should remain a majority black country. Yeah, it's not racist. We are demographically being replaced. Nigel Farage already said he doesn't care. Nigel Farage and Reform have said they will let men go into women's prisons. Nigel Farage's politician sat on TV and said she's all for digital IDs. So all the things that they're meant to oppose as a political party, Nigel Farage just took £1 million from the World Economic Forum Muslim donor. Nigel Farage, Zia Youssef looks like he's the man, the Muslim in control of Reform. My friend went to, Reform had a dinner recently. It was £25,000 a ticket to have, for the head table with Nigel Farage, the entire head table of Pakistani Muslims. So I look at all the populist parties in Europe, where their leaders are coming to talk at our event, and I look at their political parties who are opposing the Islamisation of their countries. Nigel Farage said by 2000, this is his words, by 2050, the Muslim demographic in the UK is going to be that big, we can't upset them. Oh, we can't upset them, so we'll hold the fucking white flag up now, shall we? Let's just give up. Muslims are going to be a majority in our country, so we give up. We don't want to upset Sharia law. We don't want to upset you. Yes, we do want to upset you. Yeah, we do. I don't care about Islam. I care about Britain. I care about Christianity. I care about our culture. I care about our values. That doesn't mean I'm going to ignore and sit just because of how powerful any vote bank becomes. In fact, what I want to do is prevent the Islamic demographic becoming that dominant by 2050. And I'm sorry, but Nigel Farage is not the man to do that. So unfortunately, I wish we could have relied on that, but he's not the man to do it. We need a revolution in this country. We need a political revolution. And anyone who thinks that's going to happen under Nigel Farage, unfortunately, they may not like hearing it. People are getting upset with me. Reform supporters are getting upset with me. I'm only telling you what Nigel Farage has said. Nigel Farage said he's going to be to the left of the Conservative Party on immigration at the next election. Look at who Nigel's taking his money from. He's giving high positions in their party to Liberals, to Labour, to ex-Tories. He is filling his entire party with the same establishment who have betrayed us. That's the reality.
Why can't you get into politics, Tommy? Because when I interviewed Elon Musk's dad, he actually predicted you could be Prime Minister within the next 10 years because he was in South Africa with Nelson Mandela. Now, Nelson Mandela killed women, killed children. He was a terrorist, became President of South Africa and probably the best South Africa has ever been through his reign. But he predicted that you could possibly be Prime Minister. Is that a possibility or is that too far-fetched?
Well, it sounds insane, doesn't it? So for me, I heard when he said that when I was in prison, but for me, I believe my power is in uniting people, which we're gonna see on the 13th of September, in my journalism, and the role I've wanted to play is to let people know what I've seen and what I know about growing up in a town like Luton. And Luton is a blueprint for every town in the city. What I've seen and what I know, it's not some magic ball I've got. I'm just telling you what's coming to your town. Yeah. So all the things that I said 10 years ago that people thought I was fear-mongering about, they now see them because they've had it imported into their own towns. I want to play whatever role I can play in awakening people. When it comes to party politics, the only party that I've seen that I can align with and believe in is Ben Habib and Advance. And I look at what Nigel Farage done to Ben Habib. I look at what he done to Rupert Lowe. I look at the treatment of Howard Cox from Reform. I look at, do you know, Nigel, they don't believe in free speech. They have a NDA that any councillor or any member of parliament has to sign. They're not allowed to mention my name. Where's the free speech? How can you have someone, do you know Nigel Farage, I may seem like I've got a bee in my bonnet, because I bloody well have got a bee in my bonnet. When I was in prison, on solitary confinement, Nigel Farage sat on national TV when Elon Musk called for my freedom and said, "Free Tommy Robinson," out rolls Nigel Farage on behalf of the establishment to justify to the public why I'm in jail, without realising that everyone's seen the film, you mug. Everyone knows why I'm in jail. Yes, I played the film. I knew exactly what I was doing. So yes, I breached the injunction because the injunction imposed on my free speech. It imposed on my right as a journalist, and it imposed on the bloody truth. So the public should have the truth. So Nigel Farage come out. He said on national TV that I have a conviction for violence against women. Now, that is one of the worst things you can label someone as, a woman beater. Yeah, that's what he said about me. And it's a total fucking lie. I have no conviction, no arrest, nothing ever happened. I've never been tried for conviction against women, never been under suspicion of violence against women. But Nigel Farage sat on national TV. Now, that man's going to lead our country. He's meant to be a man of honour, a man of truth. He knows what he said is a lie. So that's what wound me up. My ex-wife had to put out a statement. She had to sit my children down before they went to school and say, people may be saying things about your dad today because the establishment brought Nigel Farage out to tell lie after lie about me. So yeah, I'm still frustrated. But as I said, Advance UK, they're the only party that I see that actually, and people say, well, then they've not got the momentum. You're right. Look at the momentum Reform have built in 12 months. But they built it off the back of lies because they don't stand on any of the policies which people think they stand on. They're not for any of these things.
I think people just went with them because it's the best of a bad bunch.
But Nigel Farage knows he's the best of a bad bunch. So he knows if you're upset about immigration, if you're fed up, who you're going to... And the establishment know this. They know no one's voting for Conservatives and voting for Labour. They need a new party. In comes Nigel Farage, in comes Reform. And what started off as a party who was going to be for mass deportations, who was going to stop all the trans bullshit, who was going to do all these different things, they've gone back on every single one of them. Every single point they've made, they've gone back on. Every point. What's the point in them? What is actually the difference right now between Reform and Conservative Party? What is the difference? Robert Jenrick's stronger than Nigel Farage on most points. He is. So yeah, do I trust Nigel Farage, the man that makes up that I've got convictions for violence against women? Do I trust Nigel Farage, the man that says he won't do mass deportations? Then I saw him doing an interview yesterday saying, I've said from the start. I'm like, no mate, you said you wouldn't do mass deportations. It's flip-flop, he changes.
What's crazy though is I'm looking at Operation Raise Your Colours and people have got flags everywhere. Scotland's now full of flags. Driving down to England, full of flags. If you're English culture's because of English people. Scottish culture's because of Scottish people. But what's scary to me is that people from Scotland are taking down Scottish flags. People from England are taking down English flags. Like, what's going on with these people? Like,
Reformed banned their councillors from attending those.
I seen York stopped the council from taking down their flags.
Yeah.
York today stopped people from taking down their flags. York Council.
That's good. But there's a level of hatred from the left in this country who hate our country, hate our flag, hate our culture, hate our history. But they unfortunately have been the ones that have been able to have a voice for the last 20 years. Well, their voice is gone now, yeah? And it's going to be taken over and swamped by a voice of nationalism and patriotism. And there's nothing they can do to stop that. For every one of them might want to take a flag down, 100 flags will be raised. That's where we're now at. And you see the people raising those 100 flags, well, 18 months ago or 24 months ago, they'd have been too scared to do it. They're past that point now. It's done now, yeah? What the momentum you're going to see now and the rise in this country of patriotism from the average British person is going to be unstoppable. Do you know, we've heard for so long, I've heard it for so long, when the British finally wake up, when the British lion awakens. Well, get ready because that lion's awake. I'm telling you now, I have my finger on the pulse. I've travelled this country for 15 years. I've been involved in this for 15 years. Everywhere I go, I see the passion and the emotion in the average person who approaches me in the street. There's no stopping what's happening now.
Why do you think the passion went though? People just look tired and...
No, they were scared. No, they were rightfully scared.
But I can see it now. It's everywhere. Like you say, it's not just the man. It's not just the football hooligan or the far right that people portray. You've got the women, you've got the children who are now making a stand, who are going to these peaceful protests and standing their ground and going, no, enough is enough. Like, are you happy that you stuck with your guns? Are you happy that you went through everything to see the rise and, like you say, the passion coming back to people?
Do you know what I'm happy for? And I nearly ruined it, to be honest, because I was going to go to the Epping protest. And what's right currently with these organic protests is that they are left to local communities. It's impossible for the government to argue with them. When someone like me steps in, it gives them the ammunition and probably loads the gun for the media to fire at them, making accusations. And they've done that for too long. So, and what's happened now, you'll see on 13th of September, the people who now are happy to align with me and share a platform with me and actually listen to me, is totally full swung. People wouldn't even be seen with me, yeah, 24 months ago. Now those same people are sitting doing interviews with me and something has drastically changed where the problem has got so bad. And then I always said for years, you see in years to come, the public are going to look back. Yeah? They're going to look back because none of this is getting erased. They're going to look to who told them the truth. They're going to look to who didn't budge. They're going to look to who was always there, always fighting. That's not just me, because there's many people who were doing it. There's a whole movement of people who joined the English Defence League. They're going to look and realise They were right. And when they realise they were right, they're going to look to who lied. And they're going to look at the mainstream media. They're going to look at the politicians. And to realise, when they realise the safety of their children has changed, the future of their country is in jeopardy, they're going to be furious. They're going to be furious. Yeah? And they're going to be wanting, unfortunately, I won't say it, but they're going to be furious. And they're going to look to who told the truth. So I think that I can sit here and look back at interviews for the last 15 years and know quite comfortably they're going to age very well. All of them are going to age very well. And I am glad that we didn't back down. I am glad we never bent a knee, because it would have been easy to start changing our words. I always people told me, I'll stop talking about Islam. It's dangerous to talk about Islam if you just change your rhetoric. When I bought out this book, I sat down with a publisher, a mainstream top book publisher. Majid Nawaz introduced me to them. And they said, right, great, because I'd wrote the book pretty much. They said, we just need to put our ending on it. Yeah. And an ending where we look to a bright future where we all work together. I said, that's not how it ends. Like, no, I won't do that. Yeah, that is not how it ends. I'm telling you, there's trouble coming. Yeah, and being weak and pandering or pussyfooting or changing our stance on what we want for this country is, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. And I lost a book deal for doing that. I lost it, published it myself. It went to #1 anyway. Yeah, so just to tell the core truth, because I think people need to understand. There isn't a beautiful pink future coming here. We're in trouble. We're in trouble because of what these politicians have imported into our country. They've imported barbarians. They've imported a medieval backward culture. And it's not extreme to say that all cultures aren't equal. Our culture is far superior. We need to defend it. We need to stand up for it. We need to stand against the intolerance that our people are facing in every town and city across this country. And I am glad I've never apologised. I'm glad I've never took a back seat. I'm glad I've never even, and I say to people, even at times when I've wanted to, I'm not pretending I've never been scared. I'm still scared. I'm scared now. I'm answering bail on the 2nd. I'm answering bail next week for the incident at St Pancras train station.
Yeah, what happened there? Because every time I've done a podcast with you, you've always been out in bail. So when you come out there, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to see Tommy. Everything will be sweet. You can look forward to the 13th, and bang, all over social media. I seen a guy lying on the floor and I think, is he fucking stabbed him? Or he looked dead. Like, what happened there?
Do you know what, James? Since I started the English Defence League in 2009, there's not been one single moment of that since then that I haven't faced charge. There's not been one clear moment. I thought this time, when I was coming out of jail, I thought I'm going to have a clear, other than the terrorism charge, which was in October, I thought I'd get that out of the way and I've got no more cases. The week before I got out of jail, they come and charged me for questioning the Daily Mail journalist. Daily Mail journalist tracked down my family. I said I'm going to ask them some questions on camera. I faced 10 years. I'm on trial for that next October. I face 10 years in a 10-year prison sentence. I face for saying to Daily Mail journalists, I'm going to ask you some questions on camera. It's just insane. I've caused them fear. I've caused them fear. They published pictures of my family, gave the location of my kids, gave the exact address where we were, but I've caused them fear. But anyway, at St Pancras, I now realise I can't walk the streets of the UK. It's sort of for years people have said I should have security. I don't want to have security. I feel it's muggy, if I'm honest. I feel like I've walked since the start of the English Defence League. Do you know when I started the English Defence League? For those 3 years, I used to have a sunbed shop in Luton Town Centre. I made sure to park my car at my shop and do the same walk every day through Luton Town Centre. And that was my show of, I don't really care what you say. Yeah, you're not going to scare us, or we're not going to run from you. I knew from growing up in Luton, you show fear once, I'll be running for the rest of my life. Yeah? So I go everywhere without security. I always have. People see me on a demonstration day where I have security on that one moment where people know where I'm going to be. But my day-to-day stuff, going to the supermarket, going into Luton Town Centre, going to the bank, I'm on my own. So I'm at St Pancras. I've been in London all day. And this is the difference. 99% of it's always positive. But it only takes one moment. And I've done Brian Rose. I've done a podcast. I met the police, met the PA system, the screen guys, planning our demonstration, done a podcast in London, went to St Pancras afterwards. I'm walking through. I'm confronted by someone who comes up in my face. I'm threatened, continually harassed. I try to get away. I'm followed. He comes after me. And then it gets to a point where he comes to attack me. I defend myself. Unfortunately, he ends up injured on the floor. I then left the scene. But when I left the scene, I contacted the police, which the media just bullshitted their way out of it. So in the evidence, when I'm getting interviewed, there's my conversation with the police that says, look, this has just happened. I've been followed. I've been harassed. I've been threatened. I've been forced to defend myself. When do you want me in? I'll give a voluntary police interview. I'll help you with your inquiries. I had to defend myself. I've done all of that. I'm out of the country the next day anyway. I then liaise with the police, come back to Luton Airport. It's like the army have descended on the EasyJet flight. They're all waiting. And it's like, I rang you. I'm the one who arranged to come back, yeah? But I've got into my interview and I'm obviously scared. I'll tell you the truth. When I started seeing that night after the incident, I started seeing them put up forensic tents and boiler suits of forensic officers. I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? Like, and so I'm thinking, is the bloke's dead? And I'm worried because I'm thinking, I know what's happened. I know I've been followed. I know I've been harassed. I know I've been threatened. I know all these things. But then I'm seeing a witness story in the newspaper that just lies. And I've actually got evidence of it being a lie. So as I'm reading this, I'm then worrying, thinking, am I going to get back and there's going to be no CCTV? Am I going to get back and there's only going to be witness testimonies that say I was the aggressor? So I'm petrified, to be honest. And I get into the police interview. I'm watching it all go worldwide news. Everyone's got an opinion. Do you know what was the most beneficial and heartwarming thing? Was the amount of people who had my back without knowing anything. They just said, he's not going to have just hit someone. No, we're not having this. So many commentators, so many people stood in my defence. I had to remain silent because my lawyer told me to remain silent. But so many people defended me. And when I sat down with I come into the interview I'd been arrested. I got transported to London. I had the brief from my solicitor. My solicitor said, really strange. I said, what? She said, they're being really, really nice. I said, okay. And then she watched the video and then I got to watch the video. And the first time I'm watching the video is as the interviewing police officers are there. So I'm sat there watching this video not knowing what to expect. And as I looked at it and I see how bad he was, how much he did harass me, how in my face he was, how clearly I was being targeted by him. And so basically he comes off a train at St Pancras. So he's coming off St Pancras to leave. He sees me walking towards my train and makes a beeline, blocks my path, squares up to me the whole time. I get away, he comes after me. And as we get to, then I get away from him going towards my train. I get to the top of the escalator and I think, right, he's going to kick me down the stairs because he's threatening me the whole time. So I take a step back and say, go on, fuck off, you fat prick. Like, you go, yeah? I tell him to go. And that's what I said to him, fuck off, you fat prick. And at that point, he turns around at the top of the stairs and that's when he comes at me. And I have as I watched it on the CCTV, I'm looking at the police officer. The police officer sort of smiled because you could see my fear went. I thought, I'm not getting out of jail, right? I thought, I'm going straight. I'm going to be remanded here. They're going to lie. They're going to have bullshit witness testimonies. There's going to be no CCTV. So as soon as I saw CCTV, I just went, oh man, thank fuck for that. I looked at my solicitor and I'm looking thinking, why am I even being sat here questioned? What are you questioning me about? He's the aggressor. He follows me and he attacks me. It's not my fault he ends up worse off. Yeah? It's not my fault. And he was clearly drunk as well. They said that he has amnesia and can't remember anything. I said, well, of course he's going to say that, isn't he?
Does that make you feel better that you weren't thrown under the bus this time?
It makes me feel better that so many people jumped to my defence.
Because you could have got remanded there a year, 2 years easy.
That's what I was expecting. But I also saw fairness in the two police officers who interviewed me. From their point of view, they're going to have watched this, yeah? What am I meant to do? As a man, when I'm followed and I'm threatened and I'm harassed and I'm followed for minutes all the way with someone blocking my route and threatening me, telling me they'll end me, making threats of violence against me, then when that person violently comes towards me and at me with their hands, what am I meant to do? Because unfortunately, there's so many commentators and so many politicians and so many people who laid comment. The only way they'd be happy if it was me face down on that floor. Yeah, I'm not going to apologise for not being face down on the floor. All right? If I'm put into a position to defend myself, each and every time I will defend myself. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And the police officer, when he finished the interview, he said, Tommy, I'm just going to say to you, he goes like, one punch can kill. I said, I know it can. And I don't want to be on the end of that killer punch. Yeah. I had no choice. I've got no choice. If someone's violently coming at me, what do you want me to do? What am I meant to do? Now, I realise now I'm in a position where I can't walk the streets, unfortunately. I can't. That's why I've got my mate sat here now. And I'll have my mates when I say go in London because someone else can step in the way because I'm in too much of a position. There's too much relying on our next event on the 13th of September. I'm in London all day tomorrow. I'm in London all day Friday. I simply, unfortunately, don't feel free to walk the streets of this country anymore because even when I'm in defence of myself legally, I'm in a terribly vulnerable position.
There must be many told you so moments for you, especially the stuff that you spoke about over the last 10 years. And it's not to be, I told you and have a bit of ego about it, but the lady who I seen in the interview, you were saying you've got family threats, you've got death threats, your family's got death threats. She says, stop being a racist.
So I come.
And then fast forward 10 years, she then get death threats for speaking out against her religion. Have you spoke to her yet? Has there ever been any apologies from anybody?
I've never had an apology from one single person. No, I have. Sorry, excuse me. Who did I sit down this week? Peter McCormack. Do you know Peter McCormack?
Yeah.
Just done a podcast with him and he said sorry. He said, I believed the lads from Trigonometry sort of in their podcast said we believed what they said about you. And do you know what?
And it's understandable to believe that.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
And I don't blame, the gentleman who confronted me at St Pancras. I don't blame him. Do you know who I blame? I blame the lies and the media. I blame Camilla Tomlinson, who sits on national TV and says I'm a white supremacist with no evidence. So if you're sitting listening to the news, you listen to her, she says I'm a white supremacist. Julie Hartley-Brewer, these are right-wing commentators. Julie Hartley-Brewer says I'm extremely racist. Yeah? How? Okay, back it up. So I look at these commentators, they're the people putting me in danger. And they're the people deceiving and fooling the public. So a member of the public who sees me walking through the train station thinks he's a white supremacist. He's a thug. He's this, he's that, because they've been lied to. So I don't blame them. And my inboxes on my social media is full of people who are apologising to me based on the false betrayal that they had by the media perception of who I was. So at first, it was pretty hard for me to swallow hearing commentators now saying what I'm saying, whereas 10 years ago or 5 years ago, they were attacking me for saying exactly the same thing. But I swallow my pill because for years, all we've wanted is for the mainstream conversation to be around this. So many people are now having it. I don't. And I said to Peter McCormack, I don't mind, mate. He said, I apologise because I said some horrendous things about you. On the podcast, I said, get him up. Let me see him. And we didn't get him up, but then I saw him. Tommy Robinson's a racist bellend. When I got home, I saw it. I wish we'd have got it up on the podcast. But look, I don't blame him. And I said, when we run the English Defence League, if I would have been in my town and I would have looked at what the media said about the English Defence League, I probably would have, without any knowledge, I'd have come out to oppose the English Defence League, believing they were Nazis, believing they were racist. Do you know the entire time I led the English Defence League, the Metropolitan Extremism Policing Unit, so in Scotland Yard, there's a policing unit to define and categorise far left groups, right wing groups, far right groups. The entire time I led the English Defence League, it was categorised as a centrist organisation. Not far right at all. So we had a lesbian and gay division, we had a Hindu division, a Jewish division, a Sikh division. Yeah, what sort of far right organisation does that sound like? But the media, by telling you 10,000 times it's far right, the public just buy it. They believe it's far right. Islam's religion of peace. They tell you 1,000 times. People start parroting that bullshit. Yeah. So I don't blame people who opposed me. I don't take any satisfaction in I told you so, because unfortunately, instead of attacking us, demonising us, arresting us, imprisoning us, defaming us, if they just would have listened 15 years ago to the warnings we were trying to heed across this country on sexual exploitation of our daughters, then how many girls may have been saved from being raped? So I don't take any satisfaction in saying I told you so. I just wish that the people who have dirty hands in this subject are brought to justice. And the same people who are still, they're all now shouting over each other. I look at the politicians now. I looked at Sean Davies. Sean Davies, who's the MP for Telford, he gave a speech recently about the grooming gangs. I've got your signed letter, you mug. He sent a letter to Amber Rudd, our Home Secretary, trying to block the independent inquiry. So here's a Labour politician who tried to block statutory power inquiry so that the police and council couldn't be questioned. He was successful because they didn't get an independent inquiry. He's one of the people who blocked it. Now he's standing in Parliament championing the need for an inquiry. It's like, mate, I've got your signed letter.
Try to cover his ass.
Covering your own ass. You were part of the problem. Shit's coming home for you on my next documentary, mate.
How many politicians, police, people who are involved in the grooming gangs, how many numbers are you talking here?
They're all, every town and city.
Thousands?
They all knew. Every one of them knew. Every council knew. Every social services agent knew. All the police officers knew in every town and city. They all knew. Yeah. So the newspapers knew. The journalists knew. Andrew Norfolk, who's won the award for, he's died recently. But Andrew Norfolk, again, I'm going to quote him. Yeah. He says, I knew about these gangs for years. I'd been told about them, but they were the far right dream. Pakistani men, white victims. I was too scared to report on it. It's like, you what? You as a journalist were too scared to report the truth, to protect little kids. And do you know what he says? I realised then when I saw the emergence of the English Defence League, we had to take this story back from the far right. Well, I'm glad we forced you to do your job, you little coward. Yeah, I'm glad we forced you to report on it, because how long would you have ignored it for? He would have ignored it for another decade, would he? 20 years? Would any of us now know about the rape gangs across this country if Andrew Norfolk hadn't been given courage? Why did he get courage? Because we made him do it. And when I say we, each of the brave men and women who joined the English Defence League, do you know at that time, do you know how difficult it was to talk about Islam? Do you know this was a time when people whispered about it? You faced full-on violent attack, exposure, you lost your jobs. So I had school teachers crying their eyes out to me when they were losing their job because they had shared something on the English Defence League, because groups like Hope Not Hate, mass NGO organisations whose job it was to attack anyone who speaks up. You speak up, Hope Not Hate, and groups like this funded by George Soros find out where you work, find out where you live. They put you in a vulnerable position, they attack you. So we don't need laws to prevent free speech, because we have these groups whose job it is to attack anyone who exercises their free speech. And then there's a punishment. Is it free speech? If you lose your job and you face death or you face violent attack, is it free? No, it's not. No, it's not. And free speech has never been free anyway. Many people have, entire generations of our country sacrificed their lives in order to give us free speech. And for too long, we've been scared to use it. But I'm quite happy, and I sit here now, rather than in a position we've been in for the last decade, thinking people agree with us, but they're too scared to say it. Well, now they're not scared to say it.
What happened with Tony Bellew? You're my friend, Tony's my friend. I like Tony. I think
he's
great what he's speaking about, but then I just seen you firing shots at each other. What happened?
The reality is he wanted a few pat on the backs from Saudi Arabia, so he fucking bent himself. He's gone because I've dug up previous past, he said, about Islam and about Muslims, and now all of a sudden, so bearing in mind, this is what I said with Tony Bellew. Think about it, yeah? We've had jihad attack after jihad attack, grooming gang scandal after grooming gang scandal. Little children, say in Telford, 5 are dead, just in Telford. Yeah, just in Telford. 5 are dead and 1,000 raped. Now, what Tony Bellew sees as the problem for division in this country, it isn't the hundreds of thousands of men that are raping their way through our towns and cities. It isn't the 40,000 Muslims on the terror watch list. Yeah, it isn't all these things. I'm the problem. Tommy Robinson is the problem. I watched it and thought, are you fucking for real? You absolute bitch. Like, I just couldn't believe it, because I had respect for... I love Tony Bellew. When he fought, the David Hay fight, I was cheering for him. Everyone wants the underdog. I wanted him to get his payday. I wanted him to make his money from that fight. I was like, go on, Tony. And I watched him, and I liked his character. I watched him on Jungle. I liked him. I loved him, actually. I really respected him. And then I watched him doing an interview with, on the microphone, it's Saudi Arabia TV. I think, mate, why don't you talk about what it's like for homosexuals in Saudi Arabia? Why don't you talk about what it's like for women who are raped in Saudi Arabia, Tony? Why don't you actually stand up for something that's difficult to stand up for? But standing on Saudi TV having a pop at Tony Robinson is pretty easy, yeah? So I just made a video saying, you're a bitch. You're a bitch for Islam. You're a bitch for Saudi, yeah? Out of all the problems you could have used your platform to talk about, you said Tommy Robinson's the problem. What's the problem, Tony? And what the fuck do you even know about Islam? He said, yeah, well, I've got good Muslim mates. Yes, so what? So what? Well, that doesn't change the fact that girls are being raped in every town and city, does it? Why don't you talk about Salman Abdi? Why don't you talk about the fact that all the jihadists on the watch list? Why don't you talk about that? But he turned everything on me that I was the problem. The reason why there's problems in this country is because of Tommy Robinson. Like, take Tommy Robinson out, yeah? Rotherham still happened. Telford still happened. Salman Abdi still happened. Lee Rigby still happened. There's still going to be more terrorist attacks in this country. They're not going to be by Tommy Robinson, Mr. Bellew. I was so disappointed because I just thought in the end, I thought he was just another bitch. And then his response was, wait until I see you. It's like, Tony, I'm 5'6", you sausage. You know what I mean? I don't make you big and hard. And if you do see me, I'm not running away, you fucking mug.
See when you got to the jail, see when it's short, I couldn't stop laughing. There's been a couple of photos seeing you got to the jail and you're come down the airport and the police are waiting at the airport. Somebody had made you
Mate,
tight,
mate,
Ah,
mate, I know.
God, mate.
So was I. Maybe, but that's how big I look next to Tony. But Tony's gonna wait and see if you've still got that energy when I see you. That's what Tony said. Tony, I've had this energy for 15 years. It's not an easy job being me. Yeah. Do you not think I've faced bigger threats than Tony fucking Bellew? ISIS want to kill me. Al Shabaab have named me to be killed. Like I'm going to bend my knee for you because you fucking say you're going to punch my head in when you see me.
Did you see the young girl in Scotland, 14 or maybe 12, who had the knife and the axe?
Yeah, but Tony Bellew probably thinks she's a racist.
She was saying, "Don't touch."
Tony is the little girl. You know the little girl in Scotland who had to defend herself against migrants who had attacked her and her little sister. Is she the problem? In fact, I'm probably the problem for talking about it, aren't I? Maybe I shouldn't talk about it, Tony.
Yeah, up in Dundee. I put a post out today. I'm happy to cover this girl's legal fees. She's now been charged, that young girl. All I seen in the video was, "Don't touch my sister. Don't touch my sister. She's 12.
You're a kiddie beater.
That's enough for me to go with the narrative of something's not right here. People are defending, not defending the girl, they're going against her. She shouldn't have knives, this and that. Listen, I understand that. But when you're backed into a corner, if your sister's been bullied or abused, for me, she's a hero. That's the way I see it. And I put a post out, I'm happy to pay our legal fees if it goes any further. But for me, you shouldn't be criminalised for sticking up for your loved ones. What do you think of this situation?
I think that Sammy Woodhouse has been fighting for so long to prevent victims being criminalised. Because you know all the young girls who are 12, 13, 14, when the Pakistani gangs would use them for criminality, holding on to drugs, trafficking drugs, the girls would end up with criminal records for the rest of their life. Whereas in truth, they're a victim of modern day slavery, a victim of criminality. That little girl, as a child, was a victim of predators. Yeah? Migrant predators. Whether they be trying to sexually abuse her or physically attack her, from what it seems like on the video, they're the criminals. She's a child. She should not be penalised and prosecuted and get a criminal record for the rest of her life because she was brave. I saw a young Scottish braveheart in that little girl. And do you know what's sad? Is that little girl has had to take those weapons to defend herself. How is it our children are even in this bloody position across this country? And the thing is, you can't stand up for yourself. That's what I said even now. When the police nicked me, all I done was stand up for myself against someone threatening me. And I face bail now on Monday. But that little girl, I think the whole of Scotland and the whole world have seen how bad the problem is in the UK. Our women are not safe. That's the reality. Our daughters are not safe. Our children are not safe. According to Tony Bellew, it's my problem. It's my fault.
What needs to change in the UK, Tommy? What makes the UK a better place, a safer place, and a thriving nation again?
By putting British people first. Get rid of all these false dossers in hotels that should not be here. If you come through 16 safe countries, you're not an asylum seeker, you're an economic migrant. If you're coming across the channel in France, you're going back. I'm sorry, if any of these problems, they're not our problem. None of these problems are ours. And what makes this country safe is that if British people know that their government and their police put them first. But right now, we know we're back of the queue. All of us know that. Everyone knows that in Britain. Who gets first priority? Migrants from other countries, not us. Who gets favourable treatment? Not us. Who's first on the housing queues? Not us. Who's protected by the law? Not us. The law is there to attack us. So this country will be a lot safer place and a lot better place when we have a government who put British people first.
And what about the 13th of September? Why should people get behind it? Why should people unite? Why should people stay strong and get together for a better future?
This is our chance to send the British establishment a message. By God, you better believe that Keir Starmer and all of those little quislings in government are going to be watching it. In fact, the entire world is going to be watching London. We determine who we are. We determine how we behave. So if you are coming, do not bring aggression on the streets with us. It's not about that. We're there to send them a message. You see, for too long, they've made us feel ashamed of who we are. We're the finest country and finest people on the planet. We should celebrate that every single day. And on 13th September, we're going to celebrate our culture, our identity. We're going to do it with smiles, with flags, with family, with friends, in music, in celebration. And just that, just seeing the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people showing pride and showing unity and unifying in solidarity together will strike the fear of God into the establishment. They've wanted us broke up into little groups. You're this, you're black, you're white, you're straight, you're gay, you're Scottish, you're Welsh. Well, not on the 13th of September. We're uniting the kingdom. Everyone is coming together under that one banner, that one British flag, the most beautiful flag on the planet. And we're going to send Keir Starmer and the government a message. We're also going to inspire people. You're not alone. You know you've been thinking you're alone. You think that it's only you that thinks like this because they've made you feel like a fringe voice. You're not fringe. You're the mainstream. We're going to show the world that we're the mainstream. We're going to show the world that Britain is wide awake. The government may be betraying us. Politicians are betraying us. Media are betraying us. But the British public are rising.
Has Donald Trump supported you yet?
Donald Trump supports free speech. That's it. So he is going against, look what they've just done with Apple. The Keir Starmer wanted a backdoor into every one of your phones to take every bit of information to spy on you. It took JD Vance to step in and say, sit down and shut up, you mug, which is what they've done with Keir Starmer. So Keir Starmer's now had his little oppressive, tyrannical regime of our mobile phones put in place. He's put the European Union in place. Donald Trump has made, do you know what? No one's fighting for our freedom in Britain. We're looking to the American establishment for our free speech. Free speech is gone. We live in a post-free speech era. We don't have free speech. We live under oppression. We live under tyranny. And the whole world can now see that. You know the scenes of Keir Starmer standing in the Oval Office just chatting shit about free speech. We have a proud history of free speech. Yeah, you used the right words, Keir. History. Because you're locking people up for exercising their free speech. You're imprisoning them. So I think that Donald Trump is a supporter of free speech. We are supporters of Donald Trump. We admire Donald Trump, and we will be doing a celebration to Donald Trump with the national anthem of America will be played in London to 1 million people as we thank the United States for standing up against Keir Starmer's government.
What do you think when Starmer sends money abroad to Ukraine and stuff, billions and billions of pounds, when the UK's on its ass and the UK's struggling?
They're just funding more. The Keir Starmer, but even Richard Tice from Reform flew over to Ukraine to have a big photo opportunity. We don't want to be funding the war in Ukraine. We don't want to go to war with Russia. Stop trying to provoke it. Stop trying to encourage it. Every time Donald Trump's trying to bring peace, all these mugs from the European Union, from Macron to Keir Starmer, keep stoking it. Keep trying to prevent it. That's it. So we want an end to a war. Everyone wants an end to the war, but some people and some corporations and some globalists want to continue the war. Certainly the European Union. They wish this war to continue. They don't care that 500,000 Ukrainians are dead. Well, what is it gaining? Who's gaining from it? Bring peace. Donald Trump wants peace. And they try to make out Donald Trump's a warmonger. He's the only person who wants to end the war.
Who's all coming to the 13th of September? Who have you got speaking?
Katie Hopkins. I'm mega excited about that.
She's fucking nuts. Just look at the people who's been cancelled though, and they have become bigger. Yourself, Kate Hopkins.
Do you know, Katie Hopkins was one of the most hated people in this country. She lost her home. Do you know when I heard her story? I moan a lot. I bitch a lot. Yeah? Poor me, poor me, poor me. You never hear that from Katie. So Katie doesn't go over. When you go through, I went through with her in her life, what they've done to her, what she lost, how they attacked her, what she faced. She left her children. I left my children. I had to leave my family because I felt my family were better off without me. She done exactly the same, but she's a mother. And at the same time she was going through this, she had a brain tumour and a head injury and all these things going on. So when I look at what she went through and she left, and now I see the reception she received, she's loved. She come in here, I walked the streets of London with her. She's loved. Yeah, I take massive satisfaction in that. And I take massive satisfaction in the fact that in all their money, in all the globalist media, all the government support, all of them, and no one's fucking bought their bullshit. No one's bought their bullshit on Katie Hopkins. They haven't bought it on me. They haven't bought it on, like, I'm meant to be hated. I guarantee you, if me and Keir Starmer walk down the street, it's him that's getting grief, not me. So Katie Hopkins is speaking. I'm excited about that because each time we've done one of these events, she's had tours going on. So this one, which is why we needed to agree the date 9 months before, we need Katie Hopkins there. Yeah. So Katie's there. I'm looking forward to seeing the reception she receives from the British public. Ant Middleton's coming. I think that right now, Sadiq Khan is a traitor. He's an embarrassment to London. We need strong men in politics. Ant Middleton certainly is a strong man. I'm very happy that he's coming to launch his mayoral campaign on the stage in London at an event which is by the people, for the people. I wouldn't say I haven't had that much contact with Ant. Ant's not going to have been a supporter of mine previously. He's never said anything supportive of me, but he's coming to London, which I'm very respectful for. I think it's a great opportunity for the people to get behind a man which could be a great mayor for London. Who else is coming?
Do you think he could possibly be mayor?
I hope he can, and if he can't be mayor, I'm sure he'll be an MP. I think that the fact that someone like him is stepping into politics, this is a new era. We're in a new era now. These lifetime politicians who come out, live their life and don't have lived the real life. He's a hero, a war hero, a strong man. He's someone that I think should be mayor, and I think that the British public will get behind him, and I hope they do. Who else is talking? Dominic Szewski, the Polish politician. We've got AFD politicians. Remember, so Peter Bryson comes to see me in jail. He's a member of parliament for Munich. Is it Munich? And when he comes to see me, remember, I've followed their politics and been in contact for a long time. The AFD were nothing 8 years ago. When he comes to see me, he said, Tommy, Munich's mine. I'm the MP now. And he's such a funny character, yeah? And it's just like, to see what they've managed to do with the AFD. They got 21% of the vote. They had the backing of Elon Musk. I think they win the next election in Germany because the problem's only going to get worse. Yeah. So they win the next election. To see Geert Wilders, who come and spoke at my event in 2018, he just won the last election. He won. That he's the top party now in Holland. Yeah. All the people on our side of politics who have never bent a knee. Yeah. Geert Wilders never bent a knee. He's standing strong against Islam. He's never changed his rhetoric. Look at the French groups. We've got Eric Zemmour's coming, French politician. We've got Philip de Winter from Vlaams Belang. He's the leader of the leader of the Belgian party. We've got Morten Messerschmidt, who is the leader of the Danish People's Party. These are leading politicians who are now coming to speak to the British audience to hopefully inspire them about the political change that they're bringing about in their countries. To let us know it's possible. We need to get motivated. We need to, 9 million people voted for Keir Starmer. 20 million people didn't vote. We want to electrify that 20 million people. We want to give them something to believe in. We want to give them their sense of identity and purpose and belief again. And we want to and direct them. And we're going to have 3 years to do that. I hope Advance UK capitalise on this. I hope if anyone's watching this, you want a political home for patriots, for nationalists, for brave, fearless people ready to actually fight for this country. Join Advance UK, support Ben Habib. And I'm not a politician. I've never wanted to be a politician. Yeah?
So who is Ben Habib for people who don't know?
Ben Habib was part of UKIP and he worked alongside Nigel Farage, but he was kicked out for wanting, he wanted because Nigel Farage's political party, there is no democracy within it. So say they want to get rid of Nigel Farage, you can't. It's a limited company owned by him and now Zia Youssef. I think Zia Youssef bought half of it for 200 grand. Nigel Farage just sold his chairman seat for 200 grand. God knows what went in the back door, yeah? But he just sold it straight away. So who? Who's Zia Youssef? Where'd he come from? So Ben Habib is, I think, listening to him, I support him. Yeah. And I think that I'd love to see Rupert Lowe work with Ben Habib. I think Rupert Lowe, as I listen to Rupert Lowe as well, as I listen to him, I think that could be Britain's Trump. He could be Britain's Trump. And he was kicked out of Reform. Reform would change. He was making speeches where he's talking about mass deportations. Nigel Farage was making him take mass deportations out. Nigel Farage kicked him out for talking too much about Pakistani rape gangs. What does that tell you? What's the difference between Reform and Nigel Farage when they're censoring their own politicians based on such important conversations? Now, mass deportations is part of British vocabulary for politics, not because of Nigel Farage. It's because of Rupert Lowe. He's been pushed there, not because of him. He wouldn't even be talking about it if it was down to him. So, yeah, I think that the country needs to shake up. It needs a real populist revolution, not a political party filled with the same traitors and cowards that were in the Tory party.
How much support do these rallies get? Obviously, the protests over 1 million people. How much can it actually create change, Tommy?
I think Nigel Farage only decided to stand back for Reform. He was going to America when we had 30,000 people outside Parliament. Remember, no patriotic group has ever had 30,000. We've gone from 30,000 to 100,000. 100,000 to 200,000. What we're about to do now is going to make history with the biggest gathering this country has ever seen in history of patriots. Now, remember, we haven't got subsidised coaches, so the opposition to us, who are funded by the Labour government and the trade unions, they put on free coaches from all over the country. They're going to get 1,000 or 2,000 people. The British public are awake. They're spending their hard-earned money travelling to the capital city. What that will do is give inspiration and people will find courage. You see all the news presenters now finding courage to talk about these issues. That's because they can see public perception. They can see the mood of the nation has changed. When you put 1 million people in our capital city, when you have a celebration of identity and a demand for justice and a demand for an end to immigration, not just an end to immigration, but remigration. Many of these migrants need to go. They need to go back to their country, okay? They need to, you're not asylum seekers, you're liars, you're frauds. You've come through safe countries, they need to leave. Otherwise, we have an unsafe future for the next generation of our children. And that's all I actually care about. Every one of us has a duty to hand down a safe and prosperous Britain to the next generation. When you look at what our forefathers gave and sacrificed in order to make sure we had freedom, to make sure we had safety. And look where we are now. Just hundreds of thousands of Afghanis and Somalis raping their way through the country. Sorry, but we are failing miserably. And if all we're asking you to do is speak, use your speech, because the more we speak, the more we unite, the more those cowards in Parliament, because that's all they are, they swing. When they see the winds of change coming, they'll all jump ship. They already are. Look at Robert Jenrick's videos. Robert Jenrick was in charge of immigration, wasn't he, for 14 years? Didn't do anything. Now he sees the mood of the nation. The Conservative Party, if they want a future, they're going to have to change and shift.
Stop illegal immigrants straight away. How positive is that to the UK?
Massively positive. How much are we spending on housing them? It's not just housing them, but even their children. There was a study that came out of Holland which showed Islamic immigration, and then it showed the dependents, the children, and it showed that they're all dependent on the state. So when we hear this bullshit about diversity or immigration benefits us, no, it doesn't. Controlled, skilled, qualified immigration benefits us. Uncontrolled mass immigration from Somalia, Pakistan, Eritrea, Afghan, Iraq does not benefit our country at all. In fact, it endangers us. It costs us non-stop. We pay for everything. Even if you look at the birth defects, Pakistani Muslims make up 3% of the UK men. They're responsible for 33% of child defects. The cost on the NHS is untold. The cost is insane. The continued costs of all the problems from Islamic immigration, there is no benefit. In fact, we wouldn't even be having the discussion on immigration if we took Islamic immigration out of the UK.
We put a post out for people to ask questions. You want to pick 3 out? We'll have a laugh.
Of course, mate. Let's have a laugh. Let's have a laugh. See what they're saying.
Pick them out, Tommy. We'll have a laugh.
How tall am I? Not very. I hope there ain't a question from Tony Bellew in there.
Nah,
Tommy, please stop.
You can pick them out.
Tony, I'll accept your apology.
You like Tony as well, man.
No, so did I, though.
Seen it, man.
So did I, bruvs. Do you know how many people messaged me? I can show you professional boxer after professional boxer, his friends all messaging me. Fucking hell, what's he done? What's he done? I bet Tony's own missus is like, oh, Tony, fucking hell.
Before we started the podcast, Tommy, we put a post out for people to ask you questions for you to answer. So you can pick out a few questions.
All of these questions are about Israel and Mossad. So do you know what's used against me? So let me give you an explanation of something that happened, yeah? So 2009, we set up the English Defence League, yeah? 2011, I have a personal assistant who used to help me with everything, wonderful woman called Hel Gower. There was a Jewish division of the English Defence League run by a woman called Roberta Moore. Now, these two clashed, absolutely hated each other, yeah? So what Hel Gower does in 2011 is she sets up a limited company called English Defence League. But then she tries to trademark the English Defence League and she sets up English Defence League Jewish Division in the limited company. Yeah? So she does that to try and prevent Roberta Moore having a Facebook page, English Defence League Jewish Division. That's actually what's gone on, yeah? Now, some people have uncovered there was a company called English Defence League Jewish Division, which means it was set up. The company was never me, yeah? So when you put all these things together from all these absolute lunatics, can you open that again so I can read it? It's like, see, it was set up by the Jewish Defence League. No, two women having an argument. It was 2011, 2 years after the English Defence League had formed, talking about it. How much is his... So all these questions are about that. I don't receive a penny from Israel, yeah? For all you fucking idiots, right? Where they get it. So I worked for Rebel Media. A gentleman, a businessman called Bob Shillman, used to donate money to Rebel Media in 2015. When I worked, my salary of Rebel Media was £6,000 a month or 6,000 Canadian dollars, whatever it was, I can't remember. I was on 6,000 a month. I didn't get nothing from Bob Shillman. I never met Bob Shillman in my life. Yeah. So when they say you're funded by Israel, basically you receive money, right, from YouTube. Well, the owners of YouTube are Jewish and they're Zionists. Fact. Which means you're funded, you're Mossad. That's exactly the same as what they're doing. That's basically what they've done me. You got money and money come from there and that means you're funded by Zionists. Well, so are you, James. You're funded by Zionists as well. That's it. So that's exactly what they've done. So let me get some more. How many mint and chocolate terry oranges has he eaten since he's been out? None. But I'm going to go get some after this. That's what I'm talking about. Nice one, James. Ask how much his balls weigh. Too much, because if I answered Paul of London's question, they haven't been emptied for a while. What in his character has changed most about himself from the younger Tommy?
That's a good question.
I'm very impulsive, always have been, always will be. Sometimes I should think things through more and slow down, but I act off my impulse, which is I'd say a quality in my character, but also a negative in my character. So what's changed most? If I could relive my days and start back where I was, I would, which I still struggle sometimes with this, I would stay sober and I would train physically in the gym every single day. one thing I've learned is that if I'd done that from the start, the work I would have got done, the benefit that I would have had on me, but not just on me, but on my family, would have been untold. So, yeah, if I could live my time again, that's how I'd live it. In the gym. Because I only found the gym, James, I only found the gym in 2020, really. And the benefit of it and the need for it, I need it. I need it.
Yeah, because we had a conversation where you were fucking borderline suicidal when you went and done, because of all the pressure you were getting, being cancelled, losing everything, to then going to a couple of retreats and kind of picking yourself up.
I was lost. And I was running, and I'm still running now. As I said, I don't have a home. So I run. I go, because I don't have anywhere. So I go and base myself abroad, and then going and basing myself abroad on my own. I guess I've done it in 2021 when I lost that court case and they bankrupt me and my divorce went through. I left on my own. I'm trying to explain this to Max. I left on my own and just set up in Tenerife, but on my own. And it was it's pretty lonely. And the truth be, I just think, I just want to be at home. I just want to be with my kids. But I'm stuck out here. And I'm stuck out there at the time because I thought it was beneficial and safer for my children. So I'm hiding in another country, trying to live a normal life, when the truth is, if I could have I just want to be at home. Just want to be with my family.
Mm-hmm. Dan Gray, he says, do you regret now your association with far-right groups in the past? Has the past detracted from the core message you're trying to deliver now?
No, because the English Defence League was never a far-right group. And you see, if it wasn't for the English Defence League, at that moment in time in history, it was needed. The tactics of it, the loudness of it was needed. It was that put a catapult up the government and made them start making arrests for rape gangs. Now, yes, it's used against me, but that is the reason I am the person I am. I will never apologise for forming the English Defence League, for being a voice for so many voiceless people at that time. Do you remember, if we just started a petition, made a little profile on social media, people would have listened to us, would they? They listened to us because 5,000 men were charging through the streets demanding that our daughters weren't halal meat.
Harry Style says, I don't know if that's from him from One Direction, but he says, how does he find the strength to keep going?
I switch on and switch off. And no, do you know what? I know I'm right. So even if I want to shut up, I can sit and watch what's going on and I just get infuriated by it all. But I know I'm right. I know I'll be proven right. I know that times have changed and the public see me more as who I am, which is not perfect. I never claimed to be. Yeah, I'm just a normal working class kid from Luton Town. And unfortunately, when people moan about me saying things, I think, well, why was it left to me? Why was it left to us? I wish you educated fucking elites would have dealt with this problem or spoke about it. All the people that went to Oxford and Cambridge, if you would have took this on and challenged and solved these problems and spoke about these problems, unfortunately, it was left to us from Luton Town to bring about and have these discussions. So I know I'm right. And if you'd spent the time I've spent with victims and survivors, hearing the horrific things they've gone through, and they're still fighting and they're still standing, then, and again, I have to put it in perspective. What I've gone through is nothing. That's the truth of it. Pick what I've gone through to what Sammy Woodhouse has gone through. It's nothing.
Davey says, why the fuck am I interviewing you? I can say this one, Tommy. Tommy's my friend. We've known each other for 6 years. I never backed down 6 years ago when I interviewed her. Certainly not back down. I'm a believer in you and what you're trying to achieve. Don't agree with 100% of the stuff that you do, but I don't agree with 100% of what anybody does. This is our life. This is our story. But like I say, I clash as a friend, so people know this. Happy to put that out there. And like I say, I'll support you for whatever you do. And again, I don't agree with everything you do. A lot of fucked up shit, but so the fuck did I, brother.
So Davey, how do you like them apples, you mug?
We finish up. I'll get another couple of more questions. Donna Fleming just says, thank you, hero. How can the justice system jail you for streaming a Crystal Palace versus Southampton game, but rape gangs and grooming gangs somehow get suspended sentences?
It's all about money.
Yeah. How are you feeling today, Tom?
I'm feeling all right, man. Just wait. Well, do you know what? I'm putting out a lot of fires every day. We've got the biggest demonstration coming up. Do you know what? I sat yesterday all day in here, and we worked through the list of speakers, orders, music. We've got lots of musicians coming. We've got 21 guests coming. The day before that, I had to sort out hotel rooms, transport, all landing at different locations at different times, bringing them all together so we can safely bring them in and out. There's a lot. I don't think people understand. We had a briefing yesterday with the TV companies that we've hired. We have got 46 meter screens with 4 different screens with sound systems being set up that each one of them are like a concert, where we need road closures to build entire structures. The work that's going into this event, I just hope it does everyone justice. I hope people enjoy the day, and I hope it gives people a sense of identity, belief and encouragement that the country's awake. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So at the minute I'm stressed, if I'm honest. And do you know what? I won't even enjoy the 13th because I'll have too many worries and concerns making sure it all runs right. I'll be able to watch it the day after and think, right, we've done it. We've done it.
Just before we finish up, the thing with Andrew Tate, what was the script here with that girl and the alleged rape?
It's all bullshit.
But what was that? I don't even know.
So basically, in 2018, we went out to Romania. I travelled with a girl called Lauren Southern. She's wrote a book. So, of course, now she writes a book. She puts out a page where she makes allegations, which then bring loads of traffic for her book. Now, the allegations she makes against Andrew Tate, I'm just being honest. I saw her kissing Andrew Tate on his hotel room door the next day. He walked her down to the car. We all walked down together. She got in the car. She messaged him the whole way. She went back out to see him. Yeah. She makes other accusations in the book about the fact that, like she says about me, she says things about me which just aren't true, yeah? She says that I tried to get her in a hotel room. That's what she says. She spent 2 days in that hotel room. Fucking hell.
How can they print that then if it's...
Because she just writes shit. She just writes shit and sells a book.
That's a big accusation against Andrew Tate, that.
Well, it doesn't matter, does it? There's loads of accusations against Andrew Tate. Do you know what I mean? It's quite fashionable. So, and all I can say is I disagree with Andrew Tate's conversion. Yeah, we've had privately big discussions bordering on arguments, yeah, about politics, about everything, because he's staunch in his belief on the Gaza thing. We've gone back and forward lots. He's like, you're fucking wrong this. So we've had lots of disagreements and argument. I'm not going to throw myself in the firing line, which is what it's done, because most of my supporters don't agree with Andrew Tate. I'm not going to throw myself for anything other than looking at what she said and saying, well, that's not true. And I know it's not true because I was there. I was in that car. I was in the hotel room next door. I spent the day with yous. Yeah? So you're bullshitting. And you're bullshitting to sell a book, which is outrageous.
What do you think of the Palestine and Israel issue?
I believe that in England, if Scotland elected a government, the majority of Scottish people elected a government whose manifesto said the final day of judgment does not come until all the English are dead, because that's what Hamas's manifesto said when the Palestinians elected them. It said the final day of judgment does not come till every Jew is dead. Yeah. So if Scotland elected a government that said the final day of judgment does not come till every Englishman is dead, and then the elected government crossed our border, murdered, raped and pillaged and kidnapped 1,400 and continuously every day fired rockets, yeah, and remember, I went to Gaza. Now, I went to Israel. I spent time in Palestinian refugee camp in Bethlehem. And the Palestinian refugee said to me, we've had 3 times more money than Germany had after the World War. We're all still living in squalor. Yeah, because the money's not spent on them. It's spent on weapons. Because what they care more about is obliterating Israel and Jews than they do about protecting and providing for their own people. So the reality is Hamas are ISIS. How do you negotiate with them? You don't. Now, if Scotland continually attacked us every day and raped our people, what would the English population be saying? Fucking get rid of that government. Get rid of them. And I'm not bothered about them. Get rid of them. Again, I'm bothered about my country and my people. And I think that with what Israel has been through and Jewish people have been through history, they have to defend themselves. And when you look at the countries that surround them, they're all totalitarian, Sharia-driven shitholes. Yeah. And if anyone has been to Israel, there's 2 million Muslims who live in Israel pretty happily. I've been there. So all this bullshit about apartheid state, I think bullshit. There's Muslims in parliament in Israel. So I just don't buy it. Again, I've been there. No one has to pay me to say that. I understand Hamas. I know that Hamas on October 8th said that their goal is not Israel. Their goal is London, New York, everywhere. If they obliterated, this is the truth, if the jihadists obliterated Israel off the face of the map tomorrow, you think they're stopping there? They're coming straight for Europe.
Tom, would you like to finish up on anything else? Anything else to promote? Anything else that you've missed?
Yeah. September 13th, United Kingdom. There's never been, when you think about it, everyone's moaned for years. We've all been upset. Right now, there's a galvanising moment for this country where everyone can come together peacefully, joyfully, as families, and send a message to those traitors in Parliament. Not just those traitors in Parliament. Do you know when the demonstrations started in Ireland, and I watched the first demonstrations in Ireland, I felt a bit jealous. As I was watching the Irish resistance, and I was watching the mothers come out. And I thought, no, I want that to be Britain. And right now in Britain, we're about to send a message to the rest of Europe, to the rest of the world, that the British public are wide awake. They're not just wide awake, but they're ready, they're standing, they're getting organised, and they're going to resist this tyrannical government, their oppression of free speech, and resist the population replacement that's being enforced upon our people.
For anybody watching that's maybe not on the fence, that's wanting to support but too scared, maybe they lose their jobs, maybe people will turn against them because the media is powerful, but what do you say to these people who are kind of want to go but scared to go?
I don't blame you. I was scared when I started my activism. That's why I used a fake name and wore a mask. I was you. Yeah. It's a lot more comfortable to speak now. And the more people that speak out and the more people come together, which is what we're seeing now, ordinary mums. Do you know how happy it is to see mums, good, well-spoken English women standing outside hotels just saying it how it is? Because I sit and think they wouldn't have done that 12 months ago. Something big shifted. There's been a shift, an orgasmic shift in British politics, an orgasmic shift in British mood of the public. So don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Stronger together. Their imprisonments, their attacks, their lies, it's only made us stronger.
Last question, Tom, just for anybody that's watching, for anybody that's in that life of struggle. You've come over many struggles in your life, but what advice would you give to someone who's in a life of struggle right now?
When you're going through hell, keep going. Who said that? Churchill. When you're going through hell, do you know, I've been in some bad situations where I've sat and thought, can I face this? Can you do this? And what I found is, at times I used to drink and I'd go on benders. I'd go missing for a day, 2 days. That never helps. It actually fucking makes everything worse. At the time it might, you're dumbing yourself out and you're drinking yourself and you're trying to escape the reality of your life. Half the time my things is, what is the reality in my life? It's trouble, it's trauma. It's continued bloody trauma. That's the reality. What is the reality for me next month, in the month after? Attacks, violence in prison. So you try and escape that. But whenever you try to escape it, it doesn't make it better. So any advice I'd give is hit the gym, go out in nature, go for a walk, eat healthily, eat cleanly. When I do that, I am ready to fight the world. When I do the opposite, I'm ready to hide under my bed, literally.
Yeah. And I know I know prison's a very negative place to be, but one thing you can be positive about, because I know you have jokes with your ex-wife, but at least you were away from her cooking, Tom. Do you know what I mean?
You've seen it.
You used to send me videos and think, fucking look at this breakfast. Yeah.
I know.
More chance of her poisoning you than the prison system.
Everyone thinks she divorced me because of the police raids and the threats now. It was the cooking. It's my choice.
Listen, Tom, I wish you nothing but the best with Kutcher. Good luck for the 13th, and anything I can ever help with, you know, I'm a phone call away.
James, thank you, man.
Yeah,
thank you ever so much.
Brother. Take care.
God bless.